All right, and we're live on YouTube. Hi, guys. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live. If you guys can hear me, please let me know in the chat. Hello. Hi, Honey Bunny. Hi, Mitzi. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Liz. Okay, hello, everybody. Again, welcome to the live. I mean, if you clicked on today's live, I'm sure you've seen the title of today's stream, and you can bet we're in for a very exciting conversation with our special guest today. Lots of exciting stuff to look forward to. But before I get ahead of myself and spoil everything, hi, I'm Candace from Learn to Draw Manga. How are you guys doing? Let me know in the chat, and while you're at it, let me know where you're tuning in from. From what parts of the world are you guys from? We'd love to know. Hi, Desi. Hi, Always Sonic. Hi, Strayway. Dylan, hi. Hello, I'm from Ottawa, Canada. Katie Master. Hello. Yes, it's just starting. Hey, Garrett. Nice to have you here again. Always glad to have you here, Garrett. Hi, good morning. I'm in the UK. Hello, Desi. Canada. Watching from Florida. Great to have you, Maurice. MKX from Egypt. Hi from Egypt. Brooklyn. Nice. From South Africa. Hello. Monahan. Howdy, Monahan. Doing well watching from Florida. Nice. Australia. Wow. I think that's the first we've had someone from Australia. Great to have you. Okay. You're doing well from America and the South. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Strayway. Hi, Sim. All right. All right. So glad to have you guys here with us for the live. I'm sure you're all excited for our guest today. But before that, to kick things off, I just want to ask, are there any aspiring mangakas in the chat? Anyone who wants to actually become a pro mangaka, please type I want to go pro in the chat if you are. Let us know. Because if you're new here and you haven't subscribed or haven't seen any of our content before, here at Learn to Draw Manga, we talk about the manga making process, and we've spoken and worked with hundreds of aspiring mangakas and even our own pro Japanese mangaka mentors. So if you're an aspiring mangaka, let us know, because we want to know. Me. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of me's in the chat. Bloody Villain, I want to go pro. Kitty Master, Dylan, Lynn, Joe, Artist, Anime, Power, Luna Suju, Simp. I'm seeing a lot of people who want to go pro. Aswad GD asks, is it even possible for an international mangaka to have his manga become an anime adaptation? You never know. And we'll talk about that later in the discussion. So if you want to know, feel free to stay for the live, because we'll be talking more about the many opportunities out there for international manga artists. Okay. All right. I'm Amser. Hi, Amser. Okay, I didn't recognize you because of your username. But yeah, Amser, Strayway, and the chat is one of our students. So glad to have you here, Amser. Okay. Glad to see that we've got a lot of aspiring mangakas in the chat. So now, I just want to tell you something. Many of you aspiring mangakas might be familiar with the challenges of starting your manga journey, whether it's grappling with imposter syndrome or finding time to draw or staying motivated. These struggles are part of the journey. We know that these issues can make pursuing your dreams feel a bit overwhelming, but before you start feeling overwhelmed, try to look past all those struggles and focus on your goal, focus on your dream, and you can start to see the parts of the journey that make becoming a manga artist worthwhile. And being a manga artist means being able to tell your story through your art, through your manga. And what's the point of telling stories if there's no one around to tell them to, right? So at some point in your journey, you're going to want to put your manga out there for people to read. And today we'll be talking to a manga artist who's achieved what so many aspiring manga artists have dreamed of. And that is getting published. Yes. Today we'll be talking to ArtCrumbs. ArtCrumbs is a US-based mangaka who turned a failed manga contest submission into a published one-shot in Viz Originals. We're very lucky to have ArtCrumbs with us today. But before I pass the mic to ArtCrumbs, I just want to give you guys a quick rundown, an idea of who our guest today is. All right, if you're excited, let me know in the chat. All right. ArtCrumbs, also known as Jackson, is an American manga artist based in Tennessee. They work in community promotions and management at Global Comics, and they regularly stream their manga creation process on their YouTube channel. So their channel is up on the screen. So when you have the time after the stream, please go and subscribe. But more about ArtCrumbs. They've contributed to smaller publications and comic collaboratives such as Red Team Go and The Paranormal Consultant, and they've been a panelist and resident artist for companies like Ego Manga, Wacom, Clip Studio, or Celsius, and Graphixly. And they've also spoken at conventions like San Diego Comic-Con, Anime Expo, CTN Animation Expo, and New York Comic-Con. All right, so guys, this is someone with experience. They've already done so much in their career, worked with publishers, spoken at panels, and gotten published. And today we'll be learning more about their art journey and perhaps help you figure out how you can navigate the path of becoming a manga artist. Okay, that's very exciting stuff to look forward to in this live. But hey, if you stick around, you'll get some great insider info on what it takes to get your work published. All right, are you guys excited? I'm gonna bring in ArtCrumbs in a bit, so let's give her a warm welcome. Let me know if you're excited in the chat. Drop a few like yays or claps in the chat. All right, super excited. Everyone's super excited. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in ArtCrumbs. So you guys...
Hello. Hi, how's everybody today? Oof, sorry. Ooh, hi, how's everyone? How are you guys doing? Nice to see everyone. Thank you, everyone. I recognize some of your names from like my usual streams or from my Twitter pages. So thank you, everyone, for joining me today, and thank you to Learn to Draw Manga for inviting me. It's like my first time being on a channel like of the size, so I'm really excited to get to share and share some of my experience and answer some of your guys' questions.
Great. Let's give it up for ArtCrumbs, guys. Thank you so much for being with us, ArtCrumbs.
Of course. Heck yeah.
It's so exciting to have a creator like you on the channel, honestly. We've been looking forward to this interview for about for months now, actually.
Really?
So, yeah. Chad, if you didn't know, this interview has been in the works for months now, and then like getting this interview set up with ArtCrumbs was honestly, we didn't expect it. We didn't expect you to actually come onto the channel, but we're so grateful. We're so glad that you can be here with us today. And if you have any questions for ArtCrumbs, guys, we'll be answering any additional questions during the Q&A section at the end of the live. So we've dropped the form link. Feel free to submit your questions in the form, and you'll never know, we'll answer them in the Q&A. All right.
I love questions. That's why I'm here.
That's great. Great. All right, you guys. So without further ado, all right. For this live, we're going to be talking about how to learn from criticism and improving your manga art, how to approach making manga for publishing, and how the ArtCrumbs managed to juggle work and making their manga how they were able to break into the manga industry, and how you can start to put your manga out there and more. So that's just a quick sneak peek of what's to come for today's discussion. So I hope you guys are strapped in. I hope you guys are comfortable. If you have a snack with you, feel free to just chill while we go through this interview together. All right. So again, if you have any more questions for ArtCrumbs, please submit them in the form and stay until the end for the Q&A. And you can also find out how you can work with code Mangaka. All right. All right. So now, if everyone's ready, if everyone's excited, we'll move on to the interview. Okay.
Yes. Let's
okay,
do it.
ArtCrumbs. I want to start with a bit of a look into your origins. All right. So, how did you get into manga and comics? I mean, what inspired you?
Okay, so originally I learned storytelling initially through music. When I was in middle school and high school, I was actually a musician, but I wasn't drawing. I didn't actually start drawing until I was 18 and already in college. But I learned a lot of storytelling through music. I played a variety of instruments: jazz band, pep band, marching band, symphonic band, honors band, pit orchestra. I did all that kind of. So that was my introduction to storytelling. But then when I got to college, I was initially going into medical, and that ended up not working out for various reasons. And I was really lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm going to date myself, but that winter, James Cameron's Avatar came out. And I was like, wow, computer animation is really cool. And the computer does it all for you. Like, that's how much I knew about art. I knew absolutely nothing about art. In fact, I almost failed my high school art class. I think I got like a C- or something. I did really bad, but I wasn't like really drawing, and I didn't really understand how to be creative at that particular time. And so when I switched into my animation degree, I learned really quickly like exactly how much work this is. And I did 2 years of animation, one year of 3D, 1 year of 2D, and I learned that I don't want to be an animator, but I really love the storytelling process or the part of the animation process called pre-production, which is like storyboarding and the animatics, the rougher stuff. I really liked that part. And when I got my animation degree, like I said, it was just a 2-year degree. I was like, wow, I should probably actually learn how to draw if I want to go into animation, 2D animation. And so I transferred from my community college to Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, into an illustration degree. And while I was there, like, my homeroom illustration teacher was a man by the name of Gary Barker, who's been drawing Garfield for like 30 years. But he's also worked on like the Hulk and Spider-Man. So he's done like a lot of like actual professional comics gigs. And he was the one who suggested that I actually go into comics. So through his guidance, I learned a lot more about like how to channel what I knew about animation, animatics, and storyboarding, and channel that into comics. And then I graduated Ringling in 2015, and then in 2018, I did an internship at Tokyo Pop. And that was really the first time I spent a lot of time around other like people interested in manga that weren't just my friends, like in a professional manga environment. And from there, I was like, you know what, I want to make manga. And so I've kind of been on the journey ever since, since 2018, like specifically like catering to manga.
All right. So
that
was quite a journey. Yeah. I was just going to say, that was a journey. Okay. But you got to this point eventually, and now you're making manga. I mean, it almost feels like, okay, you were always meant to do this, you know, because
I think so.
Yeah, because starting from animation, like clearly you've talked about studying animation for a while before going into making manga. So you've definitely, it seems like you've always been drawn towards like creative stuff, like drawing, making art. So I feel like you were meant to be here, and you've gotten to this point.
Yeah, so. I'm very happy to be here. I wouldn't change anything. You know, as far as like where I ended up. I wish I would have been able to get here quicker, just because there was a lot of criticism that I received when I was studying at Ringling to like not draw manga, not draw like to anime. So I feel like if I had more confidence back then to be true to like what I wanted to do and not let other people pressure me into drawing more the Western way, I might have been able to get here faster. But I mean, I can't go back and change anything, so I might as well just embrace where I am right now and be proud of the journey that I have, and just keep moving forward. But also, like, in return, like, try to pull people up with me so that they don't have to go through the process that I had to go through. And that's why I like doing stuff like this. That's why I like streaming, is I can share my journey with other people, so that way maybe they don't feel as lonely as I did. And maybe I can prevent them from making mistakes that I made.
It's really cool, ArtCrumbs. And you guys, I feel like a lot of our viewers actually can relate. I mean, we've spoken to a lot of artists who feel like, oh, I feel like it's too late for me. I'm too old. I'm too old to start. I'm too old to start making manga. And it's like, but if you want to, then you should go for it. If you have the passion for it, then making something that you love will be incredibly fulfilling, no matter at what point in your journey you start, so so moving on, you mentioned that you have a background in music, animation, and storytelling, and you also said that before you ever started drawing, you were a band kid, and once you got into animation, you were fascinated by the pre-production process, like storyboarding, character designs, animatics, all that. So how have your skills and experience shaped your work in manga and comics, and how do different ways of telling stories, like in books or shows, inspire your work?
So things like animation, advertising, film, comics, they're all under a collective umbrella of something called visual narrative. And visual narrative has these principles, like there's 12 or 13 of them, that are like how to tell stories with pictures. And that's basically what visual narrative means, is it's like literally picture story, basically. So, and the same principles apply to all of them, whether it's like literally making commercials. Like, we've all seen some of the famous like Southeast Asian commercials that just like pull your heartstrings and they just make you like, oh my god. So like, we've seen the amazing storytelling there. And then you have, of course, like film and animation, even something like puppeteering is another form of visual narrative. So there's so many different ways to use these same principles. And so now that I've learned, like once I learned the basics of animation, it's like, how can I take that and apply it to comics? And for me, the way that this has sort of manifested, and this was really interesting to try to explain to my illustration classmates because illustration is very different than animation as far as how they teach similar things. Is I see the animation, like we all joke that we see the cool like opening and ending theme in our head to the music that we really like. For me, it's like the whole manga is like, it's like a movie in my mind. And when I'm making my manga, I'm just picking out the frames that I like the most. And I go, oh, I'm going to draw that part. Oh, I like that part. Oh, I like that part. And then but then you have the extra problem of like komowari, which is like, how do you place it on the page so that it reads really well? It looks good and like the values work. So like, it's really complicated, but that's where it starts, is I just start from, okay, like what does the action in my mind look like? And then which frame of that like shot or sequence is the best one to pick for this particular panel. So that's been really helpful, but also like pacing, which is something music has taught me. When you go through a manga, you have like, I mentioned this in some of my videos, you have rough pages, dense pages. So you have pages with lots of panels and pages with a few panels. And the number of panels on a page affects the speed at which a reader reads. And that can be the same thing as like, how many different shots do you have in like action movies tend to have a lot of shots, like really quick, like it's the camera angle is constantly changing, right? Versus in the slower moments, you'll have less changes. That's a very similar way that you can approach your paneling, is when you have like a lot of panels on a page, like that reader's going to read through them really quickly because they're small. When you have larger panels, it takes the reader a longer time to get through those panels because there's more real estate that they're taking up. So stuff like that, it's a similar concept, but it's just used in a slightly different way when you're using them in comics. So I feel like if you can study animation, if you like film, if you like animation, study those principles, and then see what you can take from that and then apply it to making manga. And I've had a lot of feedback that my stuff can feel cinematic sometimes. Whether that's a compliment or not, I don't know, but I take it as one. And yeah, I'm like, cool, like good. Then obviously what I know is coming through in my work. So thanks.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that's nothing but a compliment having your work come off as cinematic, because I feel like that's ultimately the goal, with visual, like print media like manga. Like, you're trying to tell a story with your panels, with your art, and if you can manage to make your reader feel immersed in your story with just drawings, then I feel like that's a job well done. So
Yeah, that's the goal.
kudos.
That's the goal
Yeah.
ultimately. Because as soon as that reader like pulls themselves out of your story, like you've lost their attention, and that is a moment that they could put the book down and walk away. And when you're working in a professional environment, especially with like, the Viz one shots and the Viz like originals, if I ever make it to that point, like the retention itself is really, really critical. And once you start losing that retention, you risk being axed. So thinking about that stuff is really, really important if you want to go professional.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really interesting, the point that you raised about music and how when you're reading manga or you're reading comics in general, there's a sort of pacing to it. With manga, I think it's called like panel flow, like how readers can go from one panel to another. And I think komawari. And like the goal of that is you have to make sure that your story is easy to follow along. Like readers can understand what's happening the whole time, basically, and not feel confused and not feel so overwhelmed going from panel to panel, thinking, okay, what happens next? What happens next? I don't know what's going on. Because I've known people who've read manga who've had that experience before with some manga that they've read, which I think if you're able to achieve that effect where readers can follow the flow and go with the flow of your manga pretty easily, then I feel like, yeah, you've done a great job there. All right. Okay, ArtCrumbs. Now let's get into your art career. Okay, so you've interned at manga and comic publisher Tokyopop and worked with companies like Wacom and Graphicsly, and now you're currently working at Global Comics Co. So can you share a bit about those experiences and how they helped you get to where you are now as an artist, and also any significant insights that might have helped you navigate the industry?
So Tokyopop, I'll start there because that was the first one of the ones that we just listed. It was a very interesting experience for me. I had initially just posted to their website just for fun, and they liked my work and they featured it, and they decided to like do an interview with me. And one of the questions that they asked me was like, what would you like to do in your future career? And I said, I'd really like to intern at publisher. And then I get an email and they're like, hey, are you serious about that part? And I'm like, yeah. So then I went and did the internship. And up until that point, so this was 2018, I was 27 years old in 2018. And it was the first time in my life, like when I got to Tokyopop, that I was in an area where I was around other like manga professionals. I was in a space where everyone loved manga and read manga. Like Tokyopop had at the time they had like an actual like a brick and mortar place, and so they had a huge library, and so I like got to borrow from the library, and I got to ask some manga questions. So like I kind of bounced from like department to department. Like I was in like I did editorial, I sat with Stu in some of his meetings, and I got to sit with the licensor, but ultimately I was a digital media intern. So what I did was I worked with a lot of the files to make sure they were ready for upload and make sure they looked good. So getting to kind of bounce around, like I didn't do any drawing while I was at this internship. It was more like behind the curtain type of internship where I got to see the different departments and like how they function. And I also got to meet one of their artists when she came for Anime Expo, Natalia Batista, who created the series Princess Amaltea. Sorry, Sword Princess Amaltea. And she was super sweet, and it was the first time I actually got to speak to someone who like made manga professionally. And so it was really healing, because up until that point I was told, don't make manga, like your art looks like it looks too anime, like you'll never get a job doing that. And so that was a really healing process that I needed to have. And while I was there, they introduced me to Wacom and Graphicsly at Anime Expo, and I somehow miraculously ended up being on a panel, 2 panels. I ended up moderating 2 panels at Anime Expo that I wasn't even supposed to be on the panel. So like fortune smiled upon me. I was given an opportunity to like moderate these panels. It was specifically a how to draw a manga panel, hosted by Wacom and Graphicsly, which is like the distributor for Clip Studio in the US and Europe. And I said, yeah. And I got to meet some really cool people, and I did such a good job there that they invited me to that. Graphicsly specifically invited me to be a resident at San Diego Comic-Con that year. And a resident is basically someone. So what I did at San Diego was I was on the floor at the Wacom booth, helping represent Graphicsly and Clip Studio, and was just drawing live, answering people's questions about the tablets, which I'd been using for years, Clip Studio, which I'd been using for years. So I was basically there to help sell the software, the hardware, and just like show off, I guess. And so that was really the first time that, like, between those 3 things, that I'd been in this affirming environment where it was okay to like what I liked and okay to want what I wanted. And after I left, I was in LA because I was at the time living in South Dakota. And so I had to go from South Dakota to Los Angeles. And I was there for a couple months. And then when the money ran out and I had to move back to South Dakota, I was inspired and kind of depressed a little bit because I wish I could have stayed out there longer. So I went back home to South Dakota. I got a job working in printing, and I did that because I wanted to learn more like new skills like file management and color profiles. And like when you work, anyone who's ever worked at a print shop knows that you learn time management really well when you work in a print shop because you have a lot of orders, you got to get stuff going out. And so I learned a lot of new skills that were relevant to eventually becoming a mangaka because I had to learn discipline. And I ran the printers by myself basically. So like I was the only person responsible if the printing didn't go through. So like that would be me that got in trouble. So I had to learn to be really efficient. And then while I was there, while I was at the print job, I met the folks at Global Comics. I actually joined the platform Global Comics as a beta in 2018. And so I've been there for a very long time. And I got really involved in the community. I was one of the first people in the Discord server. And I just stuck around and I loved it. I loved the analytics specifically. Like that was what really got me excited as a creator. And then in 2021, I got hired on full-time in the community department. So now I do everything from helping the blog to social media to like getting featured comics up. So now I have the opportunity to meet publishers and meet other creators and be there and support them and offer them advice, but also learn from them. Because one of the things that I do in the blog is I host interviews. Ironic, isn't it? So now it's my turn to be interviewed. Yeah, so like I learn a lot from other people, and because I do community, I also go to conventions, and so I get the opportunity to go to industry parties, and like I basically like my main task when I'm at a con is to like run around the floor, go meet our publishers, go meet our creators, the people in the artist alley. Like I go run and I meet around and I say hi to everyone. Hey, how you doing? You doing okay? You need anything? And then help any like maybe events we might be doing. Like at San Diego, we did a mixer, so like I helped schedule and host that. So I'm so like neck deep in the community now, like on like the Global Comics side, where I can learn from other people, meet other people, and then I also have like my own creator side where I just spend all day being around other people that do what I do and want to do what I want to do. It's really like fulfilling. And then when I'm done, I go draw my own stuff. So that was a long answer. I'm sorry, but
no, it's great. It's great. I think you've covered pretty much everything about like your journey, your career so far, and I feel like you've already done so much with your career. Yeah. You've worked with so many people, so many companies, and you're already currently at Global Comics, and right now at Global Comics, like you said, you're really deep into the community. Yeah. And I think it's important to have that community, guys, when you're an aspiring manga artist, especially like having people taking advice from fellow artists and getting support is always a great thing, and it's definitely something that you should look for in your own communities. Like, go online, connect with other artists. It's always a good thing.
Community is
All
so
right.
critical.
Yeah. And also, speaking of all of these experiences you've had, I'm sure like all of these experiences like gave you insight on the various opportunities for manga artists looking to put their work out there and to like basically just make their mark in the industry. So speaking of opportunities, you went to a portfolio review with Viz Media at San Diego Comic-Con back in 2023. So can you tell us more about how that went down? And we also had a question from our student Donovan, who asks, like, what did your portfolio include exactly? Like, was it your actual completed one-shot, storyboard, character design, sketches, all that? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so before I go into how the portfolio review actually happened, I will I throw a disclaimer that this was a very unusual circumstance and this is not the norm, and I would not recommend this. So like, do not do what I did. I know it worked out for me. I am an exception to the rule. Like, do not do this, and I will probably clarify that again later once I get there. So I was initially not supposed to go to San Diego last year. It was initially just going to be like, as far as like for Global Comics, I wasn't supposed to go. There's no way that I could afford to go on my own. And then one of my coworkers spoke with Eigo Manga, who was looking for more creators for a panel they were hosting about making manga. And that coworker put my name forward, and the panel host Eigo Manga was like, "Oh yeah, like their work looks great. That's awesome. Like I'd be happy to have them." And so that was the only reason I went initially. So I got really lucky. That was, I ended up going, and while I was there, I'm like, well, I'm here. I might as well do work for Global Comics. And then I was able to have some time off, and I chose Friday, which was the day that they did the portfolio reviews. And at this time, they hadn't announced the one-shot program. And so these were just general portfolio reviews. So like your bare bones, basic, overall general world portfolio with some illustrations, some sample pages, some sample sequential pages, like character artwork, environment design. It was meant to be just a very general portfolio review. And then when I sat down for my portfolio review, it went really awful at first. Like I was so scared before I got up. So I sat down and like I had my Samsung tablet and I was ready to go and I was all excited, and I was talking with some of the other folks there that were waiting for their turn. And like they showed me their portfolio and I went to show them mine, and then I went, I have the wrong portfolio, which is like the cardinal sin of a portfolio review. So like I had the wrong file, and I did not have the time to like run back to my to my hotel to go get it because it was on my laptop. And so like, here's the thing: you should always have your portfolio available online as somewhere else, and like double, triple, quadruple check that you have the right file with you, because I was so scared to realize that I had the wrong portfolio. Because I was taught that's like the cardinal sin of reviews and stuff, right? Like what a horrible first impression to make on someone like Viz Media. And so I was like, you know what? Nope, I'm done. And I went to get up, and like one of the next to me comic deal, like, I love you, like I don't know if I would have left if you wouldn't have told me not to. So like, I love you. Thank you for convincing me to stay twice. As you'll see in a minute. But she's like, no, like just like when you get up there, like just tell them, like, hey, I have their own portfolio. Are you willing to look at it anyway? And I'm like, okay. You know what? I'm being a chicken. You're completely right. I should at least ask. Like, the worst they'll say is no. And then I calm down, and then I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the judges, and I'm like, like I know that guy. Like there were three of them, an originals editor, and then two men, and the man in the middle. I was like, I know this guy. I know his name. So I'm like, I have my LinkedIn open for Viz Media, and I'm like scrolling through trying to figure out who this person is. And I turn to my new friend, and I'm like, who is that? Who is that guy? And she's like, oh, that's Hisashi Sasaki. What? I have the wrong portfolio. and meeting Viz for the first time, and meeting Hisashi Sasaki for the first time, and I have the wrong portfolio. Oh my gosh. So I was panicking. I was freaking out. And I was like, I'm like, oh my God. And I told her, I'm like, I'm going to throw up. Like, I'm so nauseous and scared right now. I was horrified. And she's like, no. Just ask. And I'm like, okay, fine. To pull out my inner Hades. Okay, fine. So like, I will. And so like, my name is called, and I'm like, hi, my name is. I have the wrong portfolio. Are you willing to look at it anyway? And they're like, whoa, what do you have? And what I had with me was a pitch for originals. So I was at the time, I wasn't planning to pitch Godsbane to the originals program. But I was utilizing the structure of the originals pitch to actually or help organize myself, because I can be disorganized sometimes. And I'm like, you know what? I really like this format. Like, you got to have your target audience, and you got to have your demographics, and you got to have your story, and you got to have characters. Like, it made it really easy to get it organized in case I ever did want to pitch it to somebody. But it was unfinished. Like, I had like some sketch, like I've sent you the original file. So like I had like some sketches, and it wasn't done. And it was, so not only did I have the wrong portfolio, I had an unfinished thing with me. That wasn't even the right stuff. Oh my goodness. So but they're like, yeah, it has everything you need. Like, it has characters, it has like sequential pages, it has everything that we would look for. So like, we just can't judge it as a pitch, but yeah, we'll take a look. And I'm like, oh. And so like I sat down, and to sort of wrap this up really quick, their feedback to me was basically, your art style looks too much like Rumiko Takahashi. And they pointed out that my main characters looked a lot like Inuyasha characters. And I was like, eh. And so I pulled up Inuyasha, and I held it next to my main character, Aros, and I'm like, oh shit. Oh no, you're right. So since then I've been remaking it. But all said, they liked my paneling, they liked my sequentials, they liked my artwork, like as far as like raw drawing skill. And then I got I got the almighty business card. I still have it, the business card they gave me. They're like, here's our business card, please stay in touch. And I'm like, oh. Yes, I did it. I don't know what I did, but I did it. Cool. So I followed up. And here I am.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
That felt like, that whole experience felt like a scene out of an anime. Honestly.
Yeah, but please do not intentionally bring the wrong thing. Nowadays, they're actually separating out the portfolio reviews between if they want to see originals, series submissions, or if they want to see one shots. Like Hisashi-san goes there and will review your one shot at these portfolio reviews at conventions. So if you get the opportunity to go, do it. Do it. So like, please don't do what I did and intentionally bring the wrong thing, because I got very, 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 very lucky that they were willing to look at it anyway, because I could have been a disastrous first impression. So please do not do that intentionally.
I mean, it ended pretty great, honestly. You ended up with a business card from Viz, so like,
right?
Yeah, it was a great ending, happy ending for everyone. So you mentioned that, you got a business card from Viz. So after that portfolio review, you reconnected with Viz and basically proposed Onami. And Onami originally began as a submission for a Jump Tezuka contest back in 2020, right? You've mentioned this before on your channel, and you said that it didn't make it past the first round. But you clearly didn't give up on it. So why didn't you give up on it? Like, why pitch Onami? Why tell this story? And also, while you're at it, like, what inspired you to tell this story?
So back in ye old 2020, I was still working, we all know the global event that was occurring during that time. I was still working. My state never shut down. And even if they did, I was essential by extension. And I was actually working 2 jobs at that time because they cut our hours back. So I was working 2 jobs. And I wanted to submit to the story. I wanted to submit to the contest. But at that time, I actually had I have hypermobility. Basically, I can overextend my joints. And I had like popped out like my forearm out of my elbow a couple times, and so I was healing, and I didn't get to during the whole time, like during the drawing period of the contest. And so I didn't really get to do the story that I wanted to do because I spent so much time healing and it was rushed, and it looked awful. Like I did use some 3D models initially when I was like getting some of the drawing done because I was trying to get it done faster. And one of the pages, like one of the final pages that I submitted, still had the 3D model in it after I looked back at it afterwards. And so I feel like I never got to do the story that I wanted to do. And when I was sitting there looking for one-shot ideas, I was like, well, what story ideas do I have? And I was like, well, I could try Onami again, like be able to do it justice. And when I pitched Hisashi-san, and then he gave me some feedback on it, and he's like, yeah, let's do this one. He's like, I think we can work with this, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, not only do I get to take this story that like I've kind of like always held out hope for, like I get to work on it with like such a legendary figure, right? But Onami is special to me because it's tangential to my Godsbane manga. Godsbane is the manga that I'm working on my own. And Onami is in the same world as Godsbane, except it happens like chronologically way before the events of Godsbane happen. And the character Pon in Onami actually does appear in Godsbane. Like you'll get to see him as a support character. But so Onami, it was just a story I was really attached to, and I was really disappointed in how I did, and I wanted to try again. And I'm just really glad that he felt it was worth trying too.
Okay, so guys, this just tells you, like, don't give up. If you believe in a story enough, if you're passionate about a story enough, then it's always worth a second try, you know, because you never know what'll happen. And with ArtCrumbs, they got published when they tried again. So you never know, guys, if you take that chance. So that's really exciting. That's really nice to see that you definitely believed in the story enough to like give it another shot, you know? And like when you did, you were met with, I feel like, a wildly great response from Viz, you know, because they said, yeah, let's do it. Let's publish this. So yeah, it's great that they were so receptive to Onami, basically, and they really like received it well. Okay. And when Onami was published in Viz, that must have been a dream come true, a total yes, I made it. I was right all along moment. I mean, Onami was even featured in a Viz Media email update alongside big titles like Free Rin, Case Closed, and also Mao. So
I made a tweet about it.
Yeah, how did you feel when you saw that?
Oh, that was crazy. I actually didn't see the email initially. It went into like one of my other I think like promotion folders or something. So I didn't see it initially. Someone actually tagged me on Twitter and was like, "Hey, like, did you see this email?" And I was like, "No." Oh my gosh. So like I love Rumiko Takahashi's work. And I am actually like actively reading Mao. And so to see my work next to literally one of my idols that got me into drawing manga in the first place, I was like, oh my gosh, like what an honor to be like right next to this person. And then Free Rin, like, I mean, look at the phenomenon that it's been, right? So like to see literally right next to them, like a few pixels away, to something like that is incredible. And it didn't feel really, like, it still felt like someone was pranking me a little bit. But it was also extremely like anxiety inducing because it's like, oh my god, the pressure. Oh, I gotta have to perform really well. So like it was for the most part, it was like, I just want to enjoy this. Like one of my favorite speeches is from like Neil Gaiman, Gaiman, and he talks about the best advice that he got that he never like used. And the advice he got was from Stephen King, and it was like, hey, this is a good thing you've got going on. You should enjoy it. And Neil said that he never actually utilized that advice. And I was like, well, I don't because I actually was listening to the speech after Onami was put out, because I just needed something to like calm my nerves down and like try to relax. And I was like, yeah, I should just enjoy it. Just be happy that I made it this far, because like Well, at this moment, there's only 7 published one shots. So like, I should just be happy, be grateful, like just try to enjoy the moment, and not worry about the
Yeah,
rest.
honestly, you've worked this hard for this long, and now Onami happened. It's in Viz,
Mhm.
so of course you gotta savor the moment. You gotta enjoy the moment. I mean, you've earned
Yeah.
it. It's much deserved. So congratulations again.
Thank
And if
you.
you guys have the time, please go and check out Onami on Viz if you guys have the time. And
Mhm.
also, moving on, I guess it's safe to say that that portfolio review on that day in San Diego Comic Con was the start. Like, it was the turning point for you and for
Mhm.
Onami.
Yeah.
Because if not for that review, you wouldn't have linked up with Viz, met
Right.
Sasaki-san, who is like a former editor at Shonen Jump. So
Mhm.
how did that portfolio review influence your current work on the Onami project?
Mm.
Because I feel it's gone through revisions over the years. Like,
Oh yeah.
you started it in 2020, and then when you released it in 2024, it was quite different after you worked with Viz.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
how did that influence your project?
I was more cognizant of the influences that I pulled from. I for a really long time I had this idea that I have to draw a certain way to have my artwork liked. Specifically, shonen style isn't like a style, like it's not actually a thing, but you guys know what I mean when I say like, like there's a certain way that tends to be more popular than others, and it's really bright dynamic work that like doesn't have a lot of screen tones in it. It's like a very typical look, right? Specifically the stuff that comes out of Shonen Jump, they're all individually unique, but they tend to have certain similarities that you can recognize and go, oh yeah, like that's a Jump manga. And because I was working with Viz, I felt this pressure initially to try to go in line with what they wanted. But working with Hisashi-san, he was like, no, like you need to stick to like what's natural for you. How do you want your work to look? Like, what is your natural art style? Because the feedback had been my style was too similar to Rumiko Takahashi, who, if you guys aren't familiar, create Ranma, Urusei Yatsura, Inuyasha, Ranma Half,
Yeah.
Meisani Koku, so like that, those kinds of series, like my style was too similar to hers. And so I really tried to just embrace the natural look. And the big thing that really changed was I changed how I approached my line art. Initially, I used to have my sketch, and then I would clean up the sketch, and then I would make a new layer and start my ink work. From now, what I do is I just copy the sketch and I clean up the sketch, and that becomes my line art. So I actually approach it a completely different way. That way I maintain the looseness of my sketches, maintain the energy that I have while drawing it. So the majority of the energy that I spend is actually on my, like the cleaning up of the sketch, the cleaning up of the name before I go into the inking. That's actually where I spend the majority of my time. As far as like trying not to be too stiff, but just trying to clean it up. So I don't have to do too much work in the inking, in the cleanup inking portion. So changing how I approached art, like how I approach the artwork itself, is really scary because like you're changing your style, right? But it wasn't so much changing it. I was just embracing the natural way that I prefer to work, which was the same way they do it on paper. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but I am a big traditional artist. I don't post a lot of it, but I have a sketchbook that I keep daily. I actually have like a diary that I keep. So like I have like a diary that I'm like always drawing in. And it's all traditional, other than like, except if I like print something out and put it in here. But I have a bunch of sketchbooks that I try to work in every day and keep loose. But I love pencil and like raw ink as a medium. And so I just was like, how do I approach that? That's where I feel the most comfortable drawing wise, and how can I replicate that feeling digitally? Not really. Yeah. So kind of aligning how I do my traditional work with how I do my digital work, really made the process a lot easier. Oh, hi, Miso. Sorry.
Can we say hi to your cat real quick? I'm sure our audience would love to see her.
Yeah, she just suddenly
Guys.
decided that she wants to come say hi. So here's my cat. Oh, she's very chatty. This is my cat Miso. So this is Miso. So she's
Hi,
a very
Lisa. Chat is very excited right now. They're just saying, "Kitty."
yeah, so this is Miso. She's my editor. She likes to sit and draw. She usually gets her own cam when I'm streaming.
Aw.
She's been I've had Miso since 2014 when I was in my last year of art school. And so
Mm.
she's been here through like a large portion of my journey. She's just vibing. I was sitting here and all of a sudden I feel this thing like pat 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 pat, and I was like, oh, it must be my cat. Miso,
Aw,
everyone
hi,
loves
Miso.
you.
Say hi to
Okay.
the chat. Hey, chat. Say hi to Miso.
Miso,
Hi,
say hi.
Miso.
Say hi, Miso. She's like,
Hello.
nah. She's like, nah.
All right,
Oh my
all right.
goodness.
Thanks for popping in. Thanks for the cameo, Miso. Great to have you with us. But okay, okay.
This nerve. So sorry, you gotta stay right here, right there. You can't come up here. There's no room for you. Sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry.
Okay, thank you for the lovely gander at Miso. It's great to have her here with her. I can hear her in the background, so it's nice to hear that as well. Okay.
She's really silly.
Okay. So, what important lessons did you learn while working on Onami? Also, like working with an editor like Hisashi Sasaki-san.
Mhm.
And as you can see, guys, here up on the screen, this is Sasaki-san's editor's note for Onami. So, I also want to get what was your impression when you first read this, and also, yeah.
So what was really interesting is I didn't actually get to read his editor's note before it went live, so I didn't know what he was going to say, which was very nerve wracking. But I was I'd seen the past ones, and so I wasn't super worried about it. But having read it, it was really neat to see that he felt such a strong impression of me when I went to that portfolio review, because I felt like I had bombed it and done a really bad job because I had the wrong portfolio. So I was really surprised that he felt that there was such a strong impression from that portfolio review, which just goes to show that I was scared out of my mind, but I just tried to be as genuine as I could while I was there. And with every single, because I redrew my Onami name a couple times before I actually finally got approved and I could finish the pages. And it was just really nice to see that he understands that I'm completely obsessed with manga, in terms of learning about it and its history and the different types of manga. I love Gekiga, which is alternative manga. So I try to learn about its history and what is its history as a medium, not just what's the favorite manga that I like and I want to learn about those manga only. I purposely try to expose myself to manga that I'm not familiar with, and genres and types and demographic types that I'm not part of or that I'm not familiar with, so that I can understand what is manga's history outside of what I've been exposed to being in the US.
So what was it like working with him on Onami?
It was really cool, but also initially really scary. Because a lot of us have read Bakuman. And so going into it, I had this I had met him at the portfolio review, but that was really all I met. That was my first impression of him, and he smiled a lot. He was really calm. He didn't seem like the big scary person he's kind of made out to be. And when I was talking with him for the first time, he smiles a lot, he laughs a lot, making jokes, and he's really good about asking me questions just as much as I ask him questions. I'm always able to ask him anything at any time. I can send him I can email him a question, and he'll get back to me within a really reasonable time. I've never had an issue with that. But yeah, what I really love is how we try to meet in the middle. He doesn't just say, I am the editor, I am the law, you have to do what I say. It's more I want to help you, I want to understand you, I want to understand your goals, I want to understand what type of story you want to tell, and then here's the standards that we need to meet. How do we meet in the middle? How do we work together, rather than it being, this is what I want to do and that's the only option. It wasn't that at all. And so it was really great to have that, but also to meet up with him at TCAF and go have some coffee and just talk like two people.
And I mean, with Sasaki's, I think, years of experience at this point, I mean, he worked at Shonen Jump before. It's with his experience, he's learned how to work with artists and bring out the best in them. And I feel like that's really important to have that connection, that understanding between an editor and between the artist, like always asking each other questions, always learning from each other and all that stuff, bringing out the best in each other. And being honest.
You got to be honest with like what your goals are, like one of the things that is I was trying to play it a little bit safe. I mean, I loved Onami and I really wanted to work on it, but that was also like the safest option because I felt that would be, of all the stories that I had, probably the one that the audience would like the most because it's a battle shonen basically. And so I thought that would be the safest thing. And when we talked 2 weeks ago about like Onami's status, like after being published, we were able to be really honest with each other and I was able to ask him some good, honest questions. And I was able to, the next steps for Onami, we were able to talk about in an honest way, without it feeling like cruel or like it wasn't. So like, I'll just go ahead and say it's like Onami is not going to get a series. It's not getting serialized. But that's okay. I'm not upset about it. He was very kind. He explained why, like this is exactly why. And this is what we need to do to make it happen next time. And he, do you want to make a new one shot? Yeah. And then we talked about it. What type of story you want to do? And then so now he's like, all right, when you're ready, just submit. When you're ready, submit again. I'm like, cool, let's do it. And there was no sort of like, oh, you feel like there was nothing like that. It was just, here's the fact, and how do we do better next time? That was it. So,
and I feel like that's a testament to your work and also your quality as an artist. Like, so even with Onami not getting a series, that must have felt like a letdown at that moment. But immediately, like, okay, what do you want to do next? And still, they've expressed that they're open to want to keep working with you, basically. Yeah. So I feel like that's important. That's the upside. I feel like if you just focus on, okay, there's always another opportunity. There's always the next opportunity.
Right. But even like Toriyama. So like, if you guys haven't read this book, I strongly recommend it. It is Akira Toriyama's Manga Theater. It's a book that I would definitely recommend for everyone. What I really, really love about this book, other than it being Toriyama's work, is it's a collection of his shorter stories throughout his career, both before he ended up getting published with his first series, and then like afterwards throughout the course of his career. And his very first one shot, he talks about he just kind of like threw something together really quickly, and like he was really nervous after sending it in, and he was like waiting for the phone. And when he picks up the phone to hear the results from the editor, he said, "So was it a hit with readers?" And then the editor says, "It was extremely unpopular. Last place, actually." And so Akira Toriyama, his first one shot ranked last among his peers. Which, I mean, if you think about, is crushing. Like, can you imagine being told that like you ranked last? That would suck. So I mean, I wasn't ranked last or anything. I performed average, so I was like right in the middle. Which is great. I had some areas where I underperformed and some areas where I performed really well. So like there were some things I did good and some things I need to do better. And we talked about that, but like it's really, really normal. So like in Japan, when they submit one shots, they get published in the magazine, and then the readers send in feedback. And then from the feedback of the readers is how they judge like what moves to the next step. And so I'm just literally in the middle of this process where it may take a couple one shots to learn, okay, what are the standards that I need to meet? Because for the last, I'm 33 now. I've been drawing 15 years. Like up until last year, so for the first 14 years of my art career, I've been doing my standards. So now I have to level up to the next set of standards if I want to move forward. So I'm not worried right now. Like, yes, I'm 33 years old. Do I worry that I'm too old to make manga? A little bit. But you know what? There have been manga that have been published in their 50s and their 60s and their 70s, and they're getting their very first series. So like, it's completely possible. I'm not too old. So like, even if I'm 50, I'm not too old. Will my hands be able to keep up? Maybe. But like right now, I'm still really young. So
Mm,
like I need to just focus on, okay, what's the next step? Let's not focus on age. Let's not spiral just because it didn't go the way that we wanted. And
exactly.
how do we move forward? And so I'm already working on a new one shot. I've already got a basic outline, and hopefully this one will do better.
Mm, yeah, like stuff like this happens, you guys.
Mhm.
Like, there's always challenges with
You
every
should
like
expect it.
career. Yeah,
Yeah,
you should expect challenges.
you should expect that
Exactly.
your first few one shots are not going to do well. Like even just if
Mm,
you're indie by yourself, like your first few stories are not going to be good, and that's why they recommend you do one shots, you do short stories, you do
mm,
yonkama, like do smaller stuff while you're working on building your skills. Save that big magnum opus that you want to work on for later. Because here's the thing:
yeah.
if you work on these smaller, shorter stories while you're learning what is komawari, what is kishotenketsu, what is naname goma, mise goma, mekuri goma, what are these things? um
Mm,
Learn, like use smaller commitment stories to learn those things. That way when you're
mm,
ready for your magnum, like you're ready for the magnum opus, you're ready for that
mm,
moment, you've already worked through the awkward phase.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
ready, you like, and honestly you will never feel ready. I still don't feel ready to do God's Bane, and I've been writing God's Bane for 15 years. I still don't feel ready to do it, but I'm at the point
Mm,
now where it's like I think I can do justice to it for where
mm,
I am now. Like I would be satisfied where I am now, so now I'm committing to it.
mm,
And yeah, same
yeah.
with like stuff. Yeah, so basically, I've learned confidence, and I've learned that failure is going to be a part of being a mangaka. And if you
Yeah.
can't handle rejection, if you can't handle feedback, if you can't handle failure, then maybe being a professional mangaka is not for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about how you tackle the challenges that are presented to you guys. You got to have like a positive mindset about it. Like
Mhm.
don't overthink and start bringing yourself down before you've
Yeah.
made anything of yourself basically, or before you've achieved anything. So if you're presented with a challenge with ArtCrumbs, then all you have to think about, okay, what should I do next? Like,
Yeah.
what's the next step? How can I improve?
Mhm.
And how can I do better?
Yeah.
Because if you're
Failures are
serious
never
about
failures.
yeah, yeah, if
Sorry
you're
to cut you off.
serious about if you're serious about being a manga artist, then don't let the
Mhm.
failures like keep you down,
Yeah,
basically.
a failure is always a lesson in disguise, right? So,
Mm,
like, anytime something doesn't go the way that you want it to, you should ask yourself, okay, something didn't go right. What is the lesson that I can learn from this so I
yeah.
can become better, right? So,
Yeah,
mhm.
exactly, exactly. So that's always something that we try to encourage with our viewers with every video, with every live that we release. Like we always say, like, don't put yourself down before you've managed to achieve anything with your work
Mhm.
or with your art, guys. Like failure is part of the journey, it's part of the process, and it's natural. Everyone
Yep.
will fail at some point in their career.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't stress about it. All right.
Yeah, there's no point to it.
Okay. So moving on, you spoke about managing your time by counting
Mhm.
panels rather than
Yes.
pages. So could you
Mhm.
elaborate on how this method affects your process, and like does it help you stay in the flow, or some do you feel
Mhm.
pressured by it sometimes?
So, working. So currently, as my life exists now, I have my full time job with Global Comics, which is like 9 to 6. So that's like a full time.
Mm,
And then I have like Japanese class that I take once a week, and then I also have like I have God's Bane, I have Onami, and I have like, well, at the time I had Onami, and I had like all these other smaller projects, and then I still had to be a human. Like I live alone. I have a cat. Like I have to still be a human and do chores and errands and shopping. Like I had all the stuff that I had to do. So how do I manage my time in a way where I'm not going to make myself sick or overwork myself? Because I mean, we all are very well aware of how easy it is for mangaka to work themselves into the ground. It's very easy to
mm,
do. And so when I was finishing Onami, like when I got the go ahead to go ahead and finish the pages, I struggled a really long time to figure out how do I balance this very efficiently, because I was like, well, I need to do about a page a day if I'm gonna get this done, and it just wasn't working very well for me. I was tired all the time, and the workload was really inconsistent because a 2 panel page doesn't take as long as a 7 panel page. And so I had a really hard time feeling like or estimating how much work I'd have to do that day. I'm like, oh wow, like I have 6 panels to draw tonight. That's gonna take me forever. So using my smart math brain, because I love math, I genuinely love math, like math and taxes and budgeting. Like that's fun for me because it's a game. It's like, how do I win the game? Here's the rules that I have. How do I win the game? And so using smart brain instead of lizard brain, I went, okay, so like I know that what is the most balanced way to approach this. So I'm like, okay, how many panels do I have? And Onami has 181 panels. And then of the total panels, how many panels do I have to do each day to get my workload to get it done? Because one single panel is a full drawing, basically, whether it has a full background or just like a screen tone as a background. Like how like that felt more even as far as like comparing panel to panel to panel versus comparing like a 2-panel page to a 7-panel page and like trying to make those work in like the same amount of time on different days. So by breaking it down into like a more even workflow, it was more easy to predict how much time I'm going to need each day, and I did about 3 to 4 panels a day. Sometimes that was a whole page. Sometimes that was a page and a half. Sometimes that was half a page. It was a lot easier to plan for 3 or 4 panels a day versus trying to figure, oh my God, like I've got double the workload I did yesterday. And I still use that process now. I utilize an app called Comics Flow to help me organize that. It's a really great app. Like I made a whole Twitter thread about it if you guys would like to look into it. But it really helps just make the workflow a little bit even each day versus stressing about like a larger page or, for that particular day.
Yeah, and I think that's a great tip for anyone who feels like, oh my God, I have to draw X amount of panels for this page, but I just have to draw like X amount of panels for this page, etc., etc. So I feel like being able to, I don't know, look at it objectively and say, okay, this is the amount of work that I have to do for a certain page. I'm going to prioritize these pages because I feel like I can get through them faster and also much easier and more comfortably. And also I feel like how you go through the process will also depend on like your mood for the day. So you also have to consider that, like, how are you feeling? Okay, I don't feel like dedicating X amount of hours today. I'm gonna take it easy, so I'm just gonna work on this,
I did that on the days I had my Japanese classes, because on those days I actually have to leave work an hour early I start work an hour earlier so I can end an hour earlier so I can go to my Japanese class, which between the commute and the actual class time takes about 4 hours of my day. So like I'm not getting home until like 9 o'clock at night, and I've not had dinner yet. I need to give dinner to my cat. I need to give my cat attention because she's a living being that deserves like love and attention and affection too. Like I need to clean my house, do my laundry, cook, whatever I got to do. So Thursdays were sort of like a harder day for me to get anything done, but it was one of those really low days where it's like, okay, maybe I only do 1 panel on Thursdays. Or maybe I focus on like double checking my lettering, or maybe I find something else that I can do, or maybe I work on God's Bane that day and I just get done whatever I can. So being able to, some of you guys have seen the schedule that I have, like my master schedule. Like it's important to have a basic idea to be able to be consistent, but you don't want your schedule to be so inflexible that it ends up causing you more pain than being helpful. Like for me, a schedule is meant to be a suggestion of how to spend your time. If you were to have an ideal day or an ideal week, if you make a weekly schedule, like what would that look like? And my schedules are by hour. So I have every single hour listed from non-military time, like 12 a.m. midnight all the way down to the next midnight. Like I have every single hour, and then I have listed what should I be doing within that time.
But before you get into that, we're going to be talking about that later. Actually, I'm going to pull that up on screen when we talk about like time management and all that stuff. But yeah, basically, guys, the point is like you need to be able to like consider yourself and be self-aware like of what you're capable of for your day-to-day if you really want to be consistent, basically.
Be realistic with it.
Okay, so going back to like Onami, do you have any interesting or fun anecdotes from your experience working on Onami? I mean, you mentioned when we spoke before that one of your major influences was Akira Toriyama and other manga giants. So how do you honor these inspirations in your work?
So for me, it kind of depends. So for Toriyama specifically, just because I was just talking about him, I got the news that he passed away while I was working on the very last version of my sketches, which ultimately became the ones that got approved. And I remember when that happened, like I had literally like just started rereading Dragon Ball because I wanted to see how he started his stories. And I was just feeling like lost and frustrated, and I just wanted some inspiration. And then I got the news that he passed away, and I emailed Hisashi-san, and I'm like, I need a break. Like, I need to step away. Like, I can't handle this right now. And he's like, that's fine. Take as long as you need. And I went to the bookstore to go get more Dragon Ball volumes. And they were actually sold out. They didn't have it. They didn't have the ones that I needed. But I did see Akira Toriyama's Manga Theater. It was on the shelf, like serendipitously. I was like, I need this book right now, so I'm gonna get it. And I did. And so while I was reading through his one shots, like I kept having to stop and like I kept crying because I was like, I wish you could have read my one shot and I could have gotten feedback from you. Like that would have been like the ultimate in my life. And because I was always inspired by all of the different stories that he created, and I grew up as a kid, like watching the new Cell Saga episodes as they released each week. So like that was my experience in elementary school, was watching the Cell Saga on TV. So that was really big for me. Like I carried around a drawing of Gohan that I had done for years, and we called them trapper keepers at the time, but it was basically just like a binder that had like a clear transparent page, and I had a picture of Gohan in there that I had drawn real badly, but I had drawn it. So like Akira Toriyama has a really special place in my heart. So what I did is I have a turtle island, like an island that is a turtle, as sort of like that I put in as like a quick little like mention for Toriyama.
Yeah, it's up here on the screen actually.
So just cute little island. And then other really big inspirations are Togashi, so Hunter x Hunter Yu Hakusho, which Yu Hakusho is my favorite manga. And then of course Rumiko Takahashi with like Inuyasha was the main work of hers that I really enjoyed, but I also really love Ranma. And so throughout all of my manga series, I sort of like to pay homage to certain moments or to specific panels that I particularly enjoyed. Or really impactful moments. Or certain environments maybe that I just really loved. This environment I thought was really beautiful. So I tried to like have really subtle mentions and Easter eggs of all my favorite mangaka like hidden throughout my stories. But the boar is a reference to one of my favorite moments in Ranma, where Ryoga like a boar is charging into a village and Ryoga stops it with like an umbrella. And Ryoga is my favorite character in Ranma. So like that's why I picked a boar. It's because of Ryoga Hibiki. So like I try to hide small inspirations like that throughout my stories.
Yeah, as Lotto the Hero says, great taste in manga. Definitely, ArtCrumbs is great taste in manga. And like hearing that like one scene that like impacted you from Ranma, or like I think you mentioned it was one of your favorite scenes. I haven't read Ranma actually. I haven't even seen the anime, so I feel like okay, I should go check it out now. Actually, okay, great.
It's really good.
Okay, so we have a question from our student Takari. They ask, how do you approach character designing? Do you design your characters after you write your script completely and before storyboarding, or does it vary for you?
It definitely varies. Those of you who have watched my streams already know this about me, but surprise, surprise, I hate drawing characters. I hate designing characters. Oh. It is my least favorite part of the entire process. Yeah, why? I would rather draw a rock than my own character. To be completely honest with you, here's how big a deal it is to me. When I had to do my senior portrait for Ringling College of Art and Design for graduation, I literally drew a rock with like 2 eyes and like my hat. I've had this hat for a really long time. I literally just drew a rock with 2 eyes and this hat on it. and that was my senior portrait because I didn't want to have to draw a person. Like, I don't like drawing characters; it's not fun for me. But like designing characters, when I do approach them, because ultimately I have to face the music someday, is I try to look at what would the character want to dress up as, how like what colors would that character pick based on their personality, and like what makes sense based on the type of environment that they live in. Pon is the type of person who is hunting. He's going to get dirty. His stuff's going to get torn. He's not going to wear beautiful, ornate things. It doesn't make sense. So it made more sense to go with a simpler design for him. The one that we're seeing right now on the screen was my very first idea, which came from a statue that I, in my hometown of Loveland, Colorado, where I'm originally from. It's not where I live now, but it's where I'm originally from. There's a statue there called "From the Sea Comes My Bounty," and it was a man holding like a net full of fish that has like a giant carp on his head, basically. And I've always loved oarfish. I thought they were really cool. I saw them for the very first time when I played the game Onami, and I thought it was just the coolest thing. The water dragon was the coolest thing, and like you could also go fishing, and oarfish was one of the options. And when I first saw the actual oarfish, I was like, "What is that?" I'd never seen an oarfish before. So that game was the first time I'd ever seen one. And so I looked them up and I was like, this is the coolest fish I've ever seen. And so I like, from then on, I had like an obsession with them. And then when I was thinking of ideas for this, like God of the Sea character, I was like, oarfish. Like,
oarfish.
Let's do it. And so from there, I've always tried to have some inspiration from that design. But when I was going through Onami with Hisashi-san, I was like, what if Oma like wasn't like, what if like she's an oarfish, but like what if she had a humanoid form? They made her more mobile, and she was also a fighter too, not just Pon. And so I was like, well, for what Oma for what role she needs to play, this works better for her. And for what Pon does, this type of outfit makes more sense for him. And of course, like he's going to change, you know, at the end of the manga, you know, his role changes, his role in life changes. And so like, yeah, sure, he may dress more ornately now. And down the line, he does. he gets a weird obsession with gems and gold and stuff. He's a little bit of a kleptomaniac, but you know, he evolves as a character. So as he evolves as a character, his desires, design will change. But as far as when I do the character design, I tend to do the character design like. I do an initial design before I do the storyboard. That way I have a rough idea of what I want. But I'm always willing to change the design as I go through the storyboard. And Oma and Pon did change a lot throughout the process. Oma didn't initially have a tail. And Hisashi-san said that your creature design is fine, Pon looks fine, but Oma needs to be a little bit more interesting. And that was his word, interesting. And I'm like, what if I just give her a tail? So I gave her a tail, and he's like, all right, this looks good. I'm like, okay. So like, I was like, a tail would make her silhouette more interesting. And it would, because without the tail, like her and Pon had very similar silhouettes, except her crown was really, because she has like a coral crown on her head. That was really the only way to tell them apart. And so I was like, well, let me do, like, what can I add that will make her very different from him? And a tail was it. And it gave me something to give people a clue as to what she might be. Because I was able to like add the fins on the end. So it was something I was able to play with.
I think that was an interesting point you brought up about like the silhouette and like adding a tail so that you could better differentiate between like the two characters, like with Pon. And I feel that's something we've spoken about on the channel, because I think this is something that not a lot of people think about, that the shape of your character can actually like do a lot with making them stand out basically amongst your cast of characters.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Yeah, like the way it was taught to me, so when I was at Ringling, I took 2 visual narrative Viz Dev, like basically concept art. I didn't do very well in those classes, to be honest. But since then, what I've learned is like your character design, like you should be able, especially your main characters, you should be able to recognize them from silhouette alone.
Yeah.
Unless there's a good reason not to. Like, a really good example of this is One's characters. So, like, Saitama from One Punch Man, and Mob Psycho, or Mob from Mob Psycho, they are
Yeah.
intentionally done to be very ordinary silhouettes. But among the rest of the cast of the characters within those series, they are unique from other characters within those series, and so that makes them very easy to recognize. But as like general character design, they're not very interesting by themselves. It's kind of like the ordinariness of them is what makes them very interesting to look at, especially with Saitama. And with One Punch Man, the style changes in the anime and the manga, like how Murata draws them changes depending on the tone. And so so not only can you play with their design based on like the tone of what's currently going on in the events, you can change it based on, like, you can change their design slightly based on how serious you're being. And Murata's work is very infamous for that.
Yeah, like when it's just like a mundane scene of Saitama, he's really round and he's almost like flat looking, but when he gets serious and when he like is about to take like a serious punch, he gets so intense. I mean, he looks sharper almost, you know. So that's one way you could play around with like your character's design and their shape. Okay, so we have another question from our student Tracy, who says, congrats on your publication, by the way. And her question is, have you ever fallen out of love with your characters for your stories? And if that's been the case, was there anything that helped you feel reconnected to them, or do they get scrapped altogether with new ones?
Yes, absolutely. I have fallen like out of love with some of my character designs. There are some characters that I feel like they serve one purpose, and then as I go through the story, they may the reason that I want to keep them changes, or maybe their purpose isn't filled anymore because I've changed the story, or maybe like Aros is a good example. Okay, maybe not Aros. We'll say Auk, because Auk is probably a better example. So because this didn't really happen in Onami, this happened in Godsbane. So I'll use Godsbane as an example. So I apologize for that. But in Godsbane, Aros is my current main character. He was initially just a villain. He was like a villain minion. He wasn't really anyone that important, but he was sort of like a supporting character to the villain. Think of like a Team Rocket, like a Meowth kind of character, like not the main character, not the main villain, but he was probably part of the crew. And a fox character named Auk was the main character. And as I was writing the story, this is pre-2018, I didn't really feel that I was as much in love with Auk as a character. I loved him as a character, but I didn't love him as the character to be able to tell this story. And my beta readers really fell in love with Aros as a character. They wanted me to write an entire chapter from his point of view just for fun, and I did. And they loved it, and I loved it. I was like, ooh, I really like this character. It's kind of cool. And then I rewrote a few other chapters from Aros's perspective, and then I rewrote the first few chapters at the beginning from Aros's perspective, and I was like, you know what, this is it. Like, Aros is now the main character. And so in 2018, when I finally made that commitment, I spent 2 or 3 years rewriting the entirety of Godsbane that I had at that point from Aros's perspective. So basically, I had to start the whole manga, my whole script over, to rewrite it from Aros's perspective with him as the main character. So sometimes you can fall out of love with your characters, but I feel like you ultimately have to decide, if I change something, am I doing it because it doesn't work for me, or am I doing it because I don't think the audience will love this character? You had to identify what is the reason you're falling out of love with this particular character, and what can you change the character to be what you want it to be. But you need to be careful when you're approaching that, because characters, the way that I see characters is I'm just observing the story. I'm not telling my characters what to do. I'm merely throwing things in their way to guide them along a certain path, but I ultimately cannot control how they react to things. I see them as unique individuals with their own free will, and I'm just kind of messing with them and writing down what they do. That was one of the big things that I got out of this experience that Hisashi-san told me, is when he's worked with other mangaka, how they talk about their own characters.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's a really, really cool idea. Let me try that. And so I did that with Onami, and I feel like it was really fun and really enjoyable. It was, I mean, I'd kind of already done that, but I'd never really had a way to phrase it. And so hearing it from him, I was like, okay, cool, like I'm on the right track with this. But yeah, if you're falling out of love with a character, don't force the character to be something that it isn't. The reader will be able to tell, and they're gonna like let it go. They're gonna drop it and go read something else. So if the character itself just like isn't working for you or working for the story, then then replace the character with something else. If it's a character that's not replaceable, then you may have to redo some writing. Like you may have to stop what you're doing. If you can't stop what you're doing, you're gonna have to figure out what is the specific problem that's causing me to fall out of with this character, and then address that specifically. It's kind of a tricky system. But if I don't have to scrap them, I try not to, because that saves me some work. If I can salvage them, I will, but I will never salvage a character at the expense of the reading experience and at the expense of the character becoming something that I don't think that character, if they were a person, would enjoy. Like I'm not going to force them to be something they're not.
That's a really unique way of looking at it. You can't force a character to be someone who they're not. And I feel like that's really something that a lot of artists can like learn from. Like as you're designing characters, you have to think of them as like, okay, who would this person be if they were a real person, and what sort of world are they interacting with, and how do they reflect the world that they live in, basically. So I feel like that's really interesting. That's a great tip. All right, so now I want to talk about some struggles manga artists face when trying to make a career making manga, or just art in general, because I know people typically think, oh, being an artist isn't a stable career, but I think it isn't fair to make that a reason to completely dismiss being an artist altogether, or to not want to be an artist, because there are challenges and opportunities for every kind of job, for every type of career out there. And yes, art careers can be unstable, but that doesn't mean you should be overly worried about pursuing one, or just like not pursue art, period. So for those, if you're deeply passionate about creating, the ability to turn that passion into your life's work can be incredibly fulfilling. So with that said, my question for you is, with juggling a day job with global comics conventions and also your personal projects, that sounds like a huge workload. So how do you maintain a balance between the business side of your work and just the pure creative joy of making manga? And actually, like, before you get into that, you actually sent us a copy of your schedule, so maybe you can get into this as well. So
So I think ultimately I have to be reasonable with myself with what's possible in a day. That's sort of the first thing that I look at, is like what's reasonable, what's possible. And like looking at the schedule, it's scary. Like it looks really scary. Like the work total there between my my Japanese stuff, when I was streaming regularly, I don't stream regularly at this moment due to some medical stuff going on right now. But YouTube stream is just replaced with manga time. But I mean, that's a full schedule. Like I have like basically a full-time job drawing manga and a full-time job doing global comics. And so it's a lot to manage. And so you just have to be realistic with what you're capable of, and be forgiving with yourself to understand that, whatever you do, you're doing what you can. And ultimately, us as mangaka outside Japan, we don't have access to a lot of the resources that Japanese mangaka do. A lot of them will start much younger, so like in their maybe late teens, early 20s, being assistants for other mangaka. That's not something that I have access to. Like even for Western comics, we don't have access to that here in the States. They used to have a program like that. Like Jack Kirby used to let people into his office and would like just let them come see and talk to him. That's a thing that I've heard stories of, and they don't do those things anymore. So like a lot of us here, we have to learn on our own, which is in and of itself a really daunting task. And so I think when you're starting, you have to figure out, okay, like what are the skills that I need to be able to get to where I want to go. And I mean, from there, you have to sort of look at what is the reality of my life and what do I have available. Like, I've not always had one job. There's been times where I've had two jobs. There's been times where, like, when I was working for the printer, I had a 2-hour commute to work, and then I worked a full 9 hour. Like, I had my 8-hour plus hour of lunch, and then I had a 3-hour commute home. So, like, just in that time, like, that's a 14-hour day right there. Like, before I even get home, like, and I still have to eat and be a person and do all those other things. And so at that time, the amount of manga work I was able to do was a lot less, and the time that I can do now is a lot more because I don't have to commute. I work from home, and I just have like a standard job, and like, I don't have any other responsibilities. I don't have children. I don't have a husband or boyfriend. I don't have any of those extra responsibilities. So I have a lot more free time than I have in the past. But just being like, making the schedule here has been really helpful for me because, again, this is my ideal schedule. This is how I want to spend a day. And if that's how I can, so like, if I have an off day, like, let's say I have a really bad day and something happens to me, or I get a really bad message, or like someone says something mean and it upsets me, and I spend 2 hours doom scrolling on Twitter, and suddenly it's 10 o'clock at night and I like snap out of it. I can go, okay, what do I need to do and what can I do? So like, the first hour is I'm going to go get some food. I'm going to have dinner and I'm going to feel better. And then I'll take the last hour from 11 o'clock to 12, and that'll be my last hour of manga. And then I'm going to cool down, and I'm going to like play with my cat and have some fun, maybe like go read a book as I get ready for sleep. So I can use the schedule as a course correct if I've been thrown off for the day. So you can kind of just, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but having a flexible schedule, like because some people, when they make schedules, they think they have to stick to it 100% exactly as it is, and you can't do that. You can't do it because ultimately life doesn't care if you have a schedule. Life is gonna mess that schedule up first chance it gets. So being flexible enough with yourself to be compassionate for what's realistically possible for you that particular day works. However, if you need to get serious about things, like for example, when I was on a deadline for Viz, I mean, I could go to Hisashi-san and say, hey, this thing happened to me and something came up. I got really sick. I was dizzy. I was throwing up. I couldn't draw. And so I had to go to Hisashi-san and go, hey, like, I'm really, really ill right now. I need an extension. And he's like, you got it. I'll work with you. Like your health is really, really important. So like, please take your time. We'll give you X amount of extra time. We'll move your deadline to X date. Can you do that? And I'm like, you bet. I had 2 weeks to do 6 pages with the extension. And so like, was that incredibly embarrassing to have to ask Hisashi for an extension, knowing how picky mangaka are, like, about their deadlines? Oh yeah, I was shaking writing that email. I was embarrassed and I was crying and I felt like a failure and like I'm never going to succeed at this rate. But I had to be realistically possible, because is it like, would it have been better if I like sent it, if I like just missed my deadline and didn't tell him? No. So like, just ask and just say the thing. So like, you know, I had to be realistically possible, because I didn't want to turn in an inferior product. So like, you know, I just had to be honest. So, and just ask. So it depends on the situation. Sometimes you have to be firm with yourself, and other times it's okay to ask for an extension, or to be more reasonable with yourself with like what's possible that day.
Yeah.
Don't do hustle culture. Hustle culture is BS. It's stupid. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I think hustle culture, it's not I don't think it should be a real thing, honestly. I don't think it's healthy at all if you're of the mindset where, okay, if I'm not doing anything, then I'm already failing. Like, I think it's that kind of mindset where you feel like, I feel like such a total failure because I haven't achieved this in this amount of time that I like set my goal to, you know. But I think you also have to consider that life happens, shit happens, and you also have to like what ArtCrumbs said, be more compassionate with yourself, you know, and be reasonable. So with that said, working with international teams and platforms like Global Comics has given you unique insights. So we mentioned earlier how community is really important when you're an artist. So, how do you
Mhm.
build and maintain connections within both the manga and comics communities, and how important is that support in your career?
Oh, it's incredibly important. I mean, because of the connections that I have, you know, like being like having a good relationship with my coworker, you know, he was able to recommend me for the panel that ultimately got me to San Diego, that got me the ability to go get the portfolio review.
Yeah.
So building those good relationships with people, and if you're presented with an opportunity to go do something because of your connections, or because someone says, "Hey, like I recommended you for XYZ," I mean, you always have to stop and go, okay, will this get me closer to my goal, or will it get me not closer to my goal? And if it gets you closer to your goal, do the thing. like like Julie, do the thing. Like, just go do
Yeah.
it. If that's possible for you. Like, if I would have had to pay for my own flight to San Diego and my own hotel, I wouldn't have been able to go. But because, you know, I work for Global Comics, they were like, well, if like we'll pay and you'll just work and be on the floor and do other things. That way you can go and be on the panel, and then like still work for us and still do what you need to do. I'm like, okay, cool, like let's do it.
Hmm.
So I went and I did a really great job, and now I'm also going to conventions more regularly. So like I took
Mm.
that opportunity and I ran with it. Like, I was able to take the opportunity given to me because of my connections. And I went and met other people, and I was able to like go build connections and like go meet other people and go to industry parties and go meet other publishers. A more recent example would be LA Comic Con last year. I went last minute. They're like, "Hey, do you want to go to LA Comic Con?" I think they asked me like 2 or 3 weeks before, and I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds great." I haven't been to LA in years. And while I was there, I met Felipe Smith, who, if you guys don't know who Felipe Smith is, he's one of the very first Western creators to get a Japanese release in Japan before he got an English release. He was published with
Mm.
Kodansha Pipocho, and yeah, it's great. I'm trying to get my own copy of it, but I was able to meet him. Like, I was walking past his booth, and I'm like, "Hey, that looks like Felipe Smith." He's like, "I am Felipe Smith," and I was like, "What? That's awesome!" And so, like, but I've gotten to talk with him, and like now we can chat over email, and he's really nice. He's happy to give me feedback. He's really sweet, and like every time I go to a con, like I always have to go and say hi to him. Like, I got a sketch in. I have a community sketchbook where I collect sketches from other artists, just sort of
Aw.
like as a fun thing, and he did a sketch in it for free. So by building that connection, I can then go to Felipe and say, "Hey, like, can I get feedback on this?" Or how would you approach doing this thing? Or can I ask you for advice? Now, I won't just
Mm.
like bombard his DMs, you know, all the time, but like that's an example of being able to say, "Hey, like, I'm at this con. What can I do to like help myself, but also what can I do to give back to other people?" So like when I meet other
Mm.
people, I'm like, "Hey, how are you? Do you need a break? Do you need to run to the bathroom? I'll watch your booth." Like, you know, like what do you need? What can I do for you? You know,
Mm.
and so like it's not just about what can you get from the community, but it's also what can you do to give back. So with Global
Yeah.
Comics specifically, I do creator sit downs. So basically, like I offer like an hour of my time to chat with creators that are on Global Comics about their analytics, their performance, what type of marketing strategies might work. It's just like an hour that I get to sit down with other creators and teach them the things that I've learned. And that's one way that I give back to the community. I look for creators to interview. And I'm like, "Hey, do you want to do an interview? I'll post it on the blog. It'll look like this. Da, da, da." They say yes. They say no. If they say yes, I give them some questions, and we do an interview. So that's another way that I can utilize the connections that I have and give back to the community by like picking the brain of this particular creator or team. Sometimes it's a team. Um,
Mm.
so utilizing those, like, it's really, really important. This is really, really important. You have to give back sometimes more than you get to be able
Yeah.
to really utilize your community well.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, "Well, what does the community do for me? What does the community do for me?" I'm like, "What are you doing for the community?
Yeah.
Why should they care about you? Why should they pay attention? Like, oh, I make a really cool manga, and what else are
Yeah.
you doing? What else are you doing? Are you positive? Are you providing a safe place for creators to be authentic and ask questions and grow? Or are you the type of person where you're like attacking people and saying, well, this person did this and this person did that and this person did that? So like, how are you utilizing your reach? How are you utilizing the connections that you have? Is it positive? Is it negative? How, like, that type of thing is really, that's your brand, right? Like,
Yeah.
how you influence people is really, really important. And that's community. And it's hard to grow.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just your social media following, it's your reputation. It's like, how do people talk about you? How do people feel about you? What type of events do you go to? Those kinds of things. Sorry, that was a lot.
Yeah. No, honestly, like, that was all really good advice, because I feel like if you're part of a community, I think it's your responsibility to try to leave as positive of an impact as you can, you know, because if you're connecting with all of these artists and perhaps you're looking to get their support and to get their feedback on your work, then you have to be able to also like do the same, you know. So reciprocate, exactly. So yeah, just put value into the community that you're in by just being a positive presence in the community, you know. Okay. And moving on, like, speaking of Global Comics, you can check out more of ArtCrumbs' work on Global Comics. And our student Nathan actually had a question about Global Comics in particular, which I think some of our audience may be curious to know as well. So his question was, like, how does Global Comics work for publishing? Like, if you're an amateur artist and you want to post your manga on Global Comics, like, what are the options that artists have when they do post on Global Comics, you know?
Okay, so community manager mode activated. So as a creator, I'll answer this as a creator and maybe do a little bit of community management, Jackson here. So initially when you post, you have the option of choosing to monetize your content right away, or you can leave it as free, or you can create a mix of both. There's a couple different monetization options. For example, you can create PDFs if your work meets certain requirements. PDFs at the moment, or PDF sales are at the moment only available to traditional format. So if you have a vertical scroll, unfortunately, sorry, we can't support PDFs. But if you have a traditional format, whether it's right to left or left to right, we support both on both reading directions on the platform. You can create PDFs for sale. Another monetization option that you have is donations. You can set up a little donation box, which you can actually see like right here underneath my like initial profile. There's follow, downloads, and then donate now. There's a little bar that you can set up and have people donate to you. And what's really cool about it is it can be one-time donations. It can be monthly donations. I have a couple of people that donate to me monthly, which is really nice and awesome to have that support. It's like, you know, really motivational. And then the last option is a paywall behind the Global Comics Gold subscription. And essentially the way that this works is if you are a Global Comics Gold member, you have access to everything on the platform, whether it's Image, Dark Horse, Top Cow, like all of those different publishers that we have. And then, of course, any indie creators that decide to put their work behind the paywall. We always recommend that creators have a certain number of pages for free before they place that paywall, like give people the opportunity to get hooked on the series, like make them want to read it. And then once they reach the paywall, they'll be prompted to subscribe. But it's not either or. You don't have to your work like be behind the paywall or free. You can actually do both. The way that I have my series set up is I have an expiring paywall. So for the first week that I publish a release, it'll be for Global Comics Gold members only. So basically, Global Comics Gold subscribers get to have like a week preview, and then after that, it's free and available to everybody else. So you can have a hybrid option if you want, and you can always determine in any release the exact number of pages that you want for free or paid. And so it's a really great way for me to be able to make some side income on it. And between the 2 years that I've had God's been on the platform, I've made approximately about $600 to $700, but I've also not been extremely active in putting episodes out constantly because I did the initial like I did like 2 chapters, and then I had the portfolio review. So then I decided to redo it. So then I had to spend a whole like 9 months like rewriting everything. So I missed a really large portion of time. But just in the, I don't know, maybe 150 pages that I've put out there, I've made about $700 between donations and the like the some of the like Global Comics Gold readers that have read my work. So, but with that, it's one of those things where like as you have more stuff, you gain what's called the bingeability factor. So the more stuff you have to read, the more people are going to go, oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff, I want to read it. Like I'm able to see my analytics and how much of my work people actually read. And so like when I had that really big pilot, which is like 76 pages, people love seeing something that's like 76 pages. Like, oh my God, this is great. But it's the pilot. It's the old version of God's Bane. And so right now I only have chapter 1 up, and chapter 2 will be coming out the middle of October next month. Yeah, and then hopefully one chapter a month after that. It'll kind of depend because, like I said, sometimes I have to go to cons for work, and so like sometimes I may lose a weekend or 2 here to be able to work on stuff. But that's what I'm aiming for. But as far as like global comics in general, like those are the options that are offered to you. So there's lots of options, but like I said, global comics supports right to left and left to right. We have traditional publishers and then indie publishers. And so we have lots of different options for anyone who wants to join. If anyone has questions, like feel free to tag me on Twitter. You know, I'm always happy to answer questions. Like I said, I do community management. So like literally my job is to answer people's questions. So like if you have a question, like send me a DM or just ping me on Twitter. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Or like find a way to send me a DM in some other way, and I'll figure out a way to answer it. or just tag the Global Comics account and someone will answer you.
Yeah. So you guys, Global Comics is definitely one option or a platform option for you if you want to try self-publishing your work online, you know, and if you manage to like generate a solid reader base and like a loyal following, then maybe you consider the option of like monetizing your work and putting it behind a paywall like ArtCrumbs, like ArtCrumbs mentioned. But moving on, like the process of creating and publishing can sometimes bring doubt and harsh criticism. So how do you manage those moments, especially now that you've reached a higher level of recognition, getting published in Viz and all? Have you developed any specific strategies to stay grounded? Any tips?
Yeah, so the easiest way that I can summarize this is two statements. The first one being people throw rocks at things that shine. It's actually also a song. But when you start to stand out, or not stand out, when you start to have more visibility, like you're going to be standing out to people, you're going to be in front of more eyes. And then there are always, like, this is unavoidable. So like, there will always be people who have something negative to say about you. It doesn't matter, like Kishimoto, Oda, Toriyama, there are people that hate their work, that say horrible, terrible things about them and horrible, terrible things about their work. So like, there are always going to be people who don't like your work. Like, for example, hot take here, I'm not a fan of One Piece, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. Like, it's not bad. It's clearly an amazing work. However, it's not the type of story or art style that I enjoy. Like, that's not, it's like saying I don't like One Piece is like saying I don't like chocolate ice cream. Okay. Like, I'm not saying that it's bad. It's just not my personal preference. So like, that's what I mean. So there's that type of feedback. And then there's your manga sucks, or like some of the other feedback, criticisms specifically, and I'll get into the difference between criticism and critique in a second. Like, some of the criticisms that I've gotten is I'll just say it word for word. I'll be honest. You're white. It's cultural appropriation if you make manga. Or you're an American. It's a comic, not a manga. It's only a manga if you're Japanese. So like, that's so I have gotten some of those criticisms, like especially since I got myself published. In fact, like, on the Facebook ad for Onami after it got published, somebody said, Western author? Nah, I'll pass. And I'm like, bruh, like, and then someone said, I'm not gonna read it if it's left to right. And I left a comment saying it is right to left. And they're like, oh, did you read it? I made it. So I could have taken that and I could have been really offended by it. I could have been like, oh my God, like they didn't even bother to look at it. Like, how rude. Like, I could have been really mean about it, but I wasn't. I was like, it is right to left, and that's all he said. And then he's like, oh, did you read it? So like, when you get those kinds of, so okay, I'll get into criticism versus critique. criticism is usually negative feedback, or it's feedback that isn't constructive in some way, or it can be just a straight up personal attack. And then there's critique. Critique is usually arranged in such a way that it's helpful feedback, it's actionable feedback. It tells you this is something that you can improve on, but it's usually, if it's done well, it's paired with something that you're doing well. So like that's one of the things that I appreciated working with Hisashi-san, and one of the things that I learned in art school is feedback sandwich, right? Like something positive, if you're giving critique to somebody, something that you liked, something they could improve on, and then like either reiterate what you liked before or provide something else that you think they're doing well. Those types of that's critique. Critique is meant to be helpful. It's meant to be actionable. It's given from a good place, goodwill. Sometimes something can look like criticism. So an example would be the head looks off. The head's anatomy looks off. And you can, when you get something like that, that's not helpful outright. And you can choose, if you have the energy or wish to engage with this kind of comment, to make it helpful. How do you do that? Ask clarifying questions. So for example, I could say, is the head shape off? Do you think the proportion of the eyes are correct? Do the eyes look even? You can choose to ask questions to people to make that, to turn this kind of like pile of like poo that you got and turn it into something helpful, like make it a silver lining, right? So like you can choose to do that if you wish. And then there are going to be people who are just, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they're just going to say something mean. Like, you know, like I had some people that were saying really nasty things about me, some people being really transphobic about me, you know, like just being really horrible about me and insinuating that I didn't deserve what I got. And I just don't engage with that. I don't reply to those videos. I don't reply to those tweets. I don't engage with them because that's not worth my time, right? So like my time is better spent either making comics or replying to the people that are asking me for help, or like actually saying, hey, like thank you for thank you for this. I really appreciate this. Like there are ways to like, because here's the thing, if you respond to those types of people, you are giving them attention. You are affirming what they said. Like whether you agree with it or not, you're saying, I found your comment valuable, a valuable use of my time, so I responded to it. And that's not what you want to do, right? So like if you are the type of person where you get these types of comments and suddenly like your heart rate spikes, walk away. Don't say anything. Don't engage with it. And don't go calling people out either. It's not, because all that'll do is bring more drama, more attention to the people who are not worth your time. And that's not what you want. So when you get whenever you're getting criticism or feedback, let's do feedback. Feedback in any way, identify what type of feedback is it. Is it criticism? Is it critique? Is it someone who maybe just doesn't know how to describe what they're looking at? For example, the person who said the head is off. Maybe they're not an artist. Maybe they're just a reader and they don't know how to express what feels off. They don't have the knowledge of how to communicate that. So you can choose to work with that person. So there's multiple ways you can respond. But when you're lost, if something happens to get under your skin, and you're like, oh, what do I do? Like, if you have a friend that can be your vibe check, I have friends that are my vibe check. I can say, hey, I had I read something or I heard something and I need a vibe check. Can you help ground me? That's one option. Another option is to just completely disengage, completely walk away. I've had times where like someone said something and for whatever reason it got under my skin, and now I drafted a tweet or a thread of tweets. Now I'm like, I'm gonna hit send and I'm gonna show you, and then I'm like, no, I'm gonna go play with my cat, or I'm gonna go play Okami. I'm gonna go de-stress, go for a walk, and then come back, level out with a clear mind. Okay, now I see, you know what, this isn't worth my time to respond because it's not going to go well. So just delete. You know, so like, yeah, you just have to identify what type of feedback it is, and if it's well intended or not, basically.
Okay. Well said, honestly, guys. Keep that in mind. Like, if you get, I don't know, if a hater comments on your work at some point, which I think every artist will experience that at some point in their journey. But then just you have to be able to identify whether it's helpful feedback. Does it help you as an artist? Does it help the work? Does it help improve the work that you do? So I think that's important, being able to like not take everything so personally and look at it objectively, you know?
Yeah. And that same goes for competition too, which we can get into later, but
yeah. Okay. So moving on, I guess we're in the last half of the interview.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I just have lots to say. I'm sorry. I just talk a lot. I warned you.
But yeah, speaking of competitions, I mean, Onami started off as like a contest submission, and now it's a one shot published in Viz Media. So you mentioned that Onami isn't getting a serial, but you are working on a new one shot. So can you hint at any other future projects aside from that, like what your current work is with God's Bane as well?
Yeah, so the main projects I have right now is like the new one shot. I'm doing a new genre I've never done before, which will be horror. I've never actually like written a horror story, but it's supernatural horror is like my favorite type of story to consume. I love paranormal, I love kyodai, I love yokai, like I love mythology, like I love that kind of stuff. So I want to create that type of story. So who knows? I don't even have like the script finished for that. So that's definitely a big work in progress. And for God's Bane, I'm currently working on chapter 2. Well, I'm working on chapter 2, 3, and 4 simultaneously. Doing all the sketches for those 3 together. And then I'll be working on I'm already getting like my first volume put together. And then I'm actually working on putting together an indie manga magazine called I'm not gonna say its name yet. But what I would like this to be is a discovery magazine. It's not gonna be like serialization, like Shrine or Pulse or Shonen Jump. It's not going to be along those lines. It'll be more along the lines of like having like a 2-page spread and like a biography for each creator that's featured within this magazine. So each creator is only going to get 4 pages. But I'm going to be intentionally including different demographics and articles and interviews. That's a magazine that I'm putting together. When that'll be ready for submissions, I'm not entirely sure. I've just started this process within like the last month or so. But that's a project that I've wanted to do for a really long time. And so I'll be putting together sort of a sample version first with a really limited number of creators. And then once I get that first edition out, sort of see what the reaction is, get some feedback, then I'll look into doing sort of like the larger editions. But I've wanted to have like a kind of magazine that could be focused on finding indie creators, finding indie manga to follow, rather than providing like serialization as far as like episodic chapters printed within it. Like each creator is only going to be able to give me the cover and 2 pages. That's it. That's the only thing you're going to have to sell people on your manga. And so I think it could be a really good way for creators to, 1, get discovered, and 2, really boil down like their brand, and like, just hopefully get more discovery because with the connections that I have, I'd really like to take this to conventions with all the publishers that I know. I'd like to be able to say, hey, I have all these connections. How can I utilize this in a way that can give back to the community, help publishers find more creators to work with, but also find those creators within my community, find them more work. How can I have the perfect opportunity to be a bridge, and I want it to be an international magazine. People from all over will be able to submit as long as it's in English. So I want this to be an opportunity for people to find work and publishers to find creators. That's ultimately and learn. There's going to be educational stuff in it as well. So it's just going to be my way to give back with the connections and knowledge that I have.
Okay, that's really nice. Like being able to help smaller creators, like give them a platform, and give them an opportunity to get discovered, is what you said. So I feel like that's really nice. Now with this next question, I just want to ask, what advice would you give to aspiring manga artists who are looking to break into the industry, especially when it comes to building a community and finding opportunities? And maybe you can touch on manga contests You know, like what sort of manga contest should they like consider if they're looking to like break into the industry, and also like perhaps some tips on like how to get into Viz Originals like yourself.
So the first thing I think you need to ask is why you're making manga. Like, you need to ask yourself that question, because there's multiple reasons you can make manga. Are you making manga because you enjoy the art form? Are you making manga because you want to be a world famous mangaka and like make a bunch of money? Like, you need to identify what that is, and that will determine the steps that you need to take. So for example, if you want to be like a doujinka, like an independent manga creator that doesn't want to be assigned to any particular publisher, or maybe you never want to work with a publisher, and maybe like if you want to make money from that, you need to identify, like, you're essentially now an entrepreneur. So like, you need to identify business, like what does it take to make a business in my country or wherever I am? Like, how does product work? How does marketing work? How does promotion work? How does all of that work? So you have to do that on top of having stuff to sell. So like, you know, you gotta make a shop, you gotta actually have artwork to sell and have a book to put out. So like, and so if that's what you want to do, you have to create a plan and reach out to people who are already doing those things. Go learn from them. Like, it's a huge investment up front if you want to go indie and make a living at it. If you want to go the publisher route, what does it take to get with the publisher? Who are the publishers that I can submit to? What standard do I need to have to reach the publisher? And spoiler alert, it's different for every publisher. Every publisher will have different submission process. Every publisher will have different things they're looking for, a different style, different themes. Sometimes they may only have select windows where their submissions are open. Like Mad Cave, for example, they have a talent search every single year, but they're only open during that time. If you're more looking at wanting to work with Image or Dark Horse, like, they have what are called slush piles, which means you can submit to them, but that doesn't mean that they'll actually look at your work. Or you may hear from them 10 years down the road, hey, we really like your artwork, like, we have the perfect project for you, but it's 10 years down the road. So, but if you want to just make manga because you love doing it, then you have no limitations, right? You can do whatever you want, whenever you want, at the pace that you want. But if you want to grow in any kind of way, like if you want to have a readership, even if you don't want to make money, unfortunately, you still have to worry about promotion. You still have to worry about marketing, because if you want to get that readership, you have to promote. You have to self-market. So it really depends on what your ultimate goals are. And you can also change them as you go. Like, I never wanted to go the publisher route, honestly. And then when I had the portfolio review with Viz, like, the reason why I got the portfolio review with Viz was because I wanted to be able to write about it for the blog. I did not think they would actually be interested in working with me. But once I learned that they were interested and they felt that I had something valuable to offer to the manga community, like as far as like a manga to offer the readers, I was like, maybe I should take my other work a little bit more seriously. So sometimes you can go from being like more of a hobbyist to more of a professional. And sometimes you can go from being a professional and say, you know what, I don't want to work with publishers anymore. I don't want to go for publishing anymore. I just want to do indie, or I'm just going to do it for fun. Those goals can change over your lifetime. And so I think in any given moment, to summarize, figure out what you want to get out of making manga. Is it joy? Is it income? Is it a job? Is it fame? Like whatever it is, like, write it down, figure out what that is. And then be realistic and honest with yourself. If you want to get published in Japan, you need to know Japanese. Or you need to be willing to pay a translator, which is very expensive. So like, and learning Japanese is really hard. Like, I've been in classes now for a year. And it's difficult. It's definitely easier for me than it was a year ago. But like, that's something that you just have to learn. Or it will make your life infinitely easier. If you just want to get published here in the States, you got to figure out what it takes to get that done here, which is different than it is in Japan. So yeah, it just really depends on what your exact goal is. But you have to be realistic and honest with yourself. Like, if you want to get published in Japan and you think that, like, oh, I'm going to get that submitting to Viz, like, I'm going to submit to Viz and then I'm going to get an anime and like, none of the Viz originals have an anime. So like, that's not saying it can't be done. like in Radiant, I saw someone ask earlier, like, has any foreign mangaka gotten an anime? Yes, absolutely. Radiant has an anime, and it's from France. So like, and I got picked up by Viz. So like you can get an anime, but for me, I don't want an anime. If I get an anime, cool, but that's not my goal. My goal is to tell a story that I'm happy with. That's my only goal. Yeah. I don't care if I beat other people. I don't care if I outrank other people. I don't care if I sell more than other people. I want to be happy first, because if I ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Just kidding. If I'm not happy, then I feel like I would have wasted my time. Like, because I would have made other people happy, and then I end up unhappy in the end. Like, that's not a satisfying life. So figure out what your goal is, and then aim for that, and be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and like you said, like once you figure out your goal, then you can start to look into, okay, what are my options? What do I do in order to like get to that goal? So if your goal is to like, okay, I want to get my work published in Japan, then maybe you can consider submitting to manga competitions. Like there are tons of manga competitions online. You don't have to go to Japan in order to participate. You really just have to submit online. Yeah,
there's a bunch of them, like SMA, the Kyoto International Manga Contest. Like there's one through Japanese consulates every year as well. There's like multiple contests that you can submit to that you can use as a way to get to Japan to be able to debut over there. A lot of them serve that purpose, is to bring in international mangaka into Japan to be able to help them debut over there. So like, but if you don't want to submit to those contests, even though you want to debut in Japan, your life's going to be infinitely harder. Because that's typically the way that it's done. So
Okay, so again, guys, those are your options, and if you've made it this far into the interview, then you've learned all about ArtCrumbs' art journey, what it took for them to finally get their one-shot published, learn about the hard work it takes to become a manga artist. So I know some of you may have more questions for ArtCrumbs, so make sure to stay until the very end for the Q&A. But for now, I have a few things that I want to talk about. First, I just want to know if any of you aspiring mangakas I saw in the chat were serious about wanting to go pro, because if you are, then you can join our one-shot manga drawing program, because it's a program that's dedicated to teaching you everything you need to know to make and finish your first one-shot manga. And you might be wondering, why a one-shot? Why not a series? Why not teach you how to make a series? Well, according to our pro Japanese mangakas, every aspiring mangaka should start with a one-shot. Because if you didn't know, in the manga industry, every pro mangaka got their start with making one-shots. If you think about your favorite manga, or maybe your favorite anime off the top of your head, it most likely started as a one-shot. One Piece, Death Note, Dragon Ball, Attack on Titan, they all started out as one-shots. And learning how to make a one-shot is an essential, critical step in every aspiring mangaka's journey. And our goal at Learn to Draw Manga is to empower more aspiring manga artists like you to start making manga and to start with your first one-shot. So the past year, we've been working with students through our one-shot manga drawing program, and let me show you some of their progress. Now, here we have Courtney. Courtney joined us this year because she wanted to learn how to make manga, and in just 9 months, she's gone from this to this. And in her most recent work this month, you can already see how much she's improved. When she joined, she already knew how to draw, but she wanted to learn more about how to actually make manga to improve her storyboarding, paneling, and just overall visual storytelling skills. And now she's on track to finish her one-shot in the next month or so. And this is what she had to say about the program. I like the sense of community and friendliness the group has fostered among itself and its members, and my favorite part of being in this program is the privilege of getting critiques from mangaka instructors who have first-hand experience in this field, and being able to converse with them and have them critique my work has given me a better understanding of what I should and shouldn't do. And then next up, we have our student Amser. He had to start from the basics and learn how to draw all over again when he joined us last year. And when he finished our basics course this year and started the one-shot manga course, after a couple months, his scenes have already improved. Recently, Amser has been learning perspective drawing techniques and anatomy. And from his latest work this month, you can tell that he's learned a lot, actually. And now he's finally preparing to create his first one-shot manga. And then we have another student, Eduardo. Eduardo is actually one of our students who's had experience submitting to manga competitions before. He joined the silent manga audition, and after getting feedback from SMA, he decided to improve his skills even more, which led him to join our program. And in just this year, and in just a few months, he's already improved a lot. He's been experimenting with more dynamic poses and background work, and he's also in the middle of working on another one-shot manga. And this is what he had to say about the program. I reached a new level of detail and characterization, learned more about backgrounds and how to be more creative about doing things against a deadline. And the mentors always give way better feedback to my works than I would, and they genuinely want us to do a good job. Okay, so you've seen our students' results, you've read how happy they are with the community and guidance from our mentors. So the question is, do you want into? If you want in, type I want in the chat. Let me see. Are you interested in the program? Do you want to be part of the community? Do you want to be part of the course? Let me know in the comments. Just type in I want in. I'm going to give you guys a minute. I mean, you've seen how much our students have improved. I mean, you've seen some of our students in the chat. You've seen Garrett in the chat, and he's been interviewed on this channel before. And you can also, once this live stream is done, you can also look back at our previous lives and our previous interviews with our students, and like just to see, okay, what was their experience in the program like? You know, Katie Master, I want in. Maurice, I want in. Dr. Bot, CP9, Joe, Janet Jones, I want in. Very nice, very nice. Thank you guys so much. I really love the enthusiasm. So, if you want to make your time making manga more meaningful and more productive, then our online one-shot manga drawing program is for you. We're on a mission to accelerate your growth, all while having fun learning how to make manga together. And you will have amazing pro mentors to guide you. First, we have pro webtoon artist Steph Pastrano. He's the artist and creator of his own webtoon online. Love collab, and as you can see, he's an amazing illustrator. He's been drawing anime and manga for years now. And our first professional Japanese manga artist, mangaka mentor, now Yazawa, has over 30 years of experience. She's also the illustrator of the iconic manga turned anime known as Wedding Peach, and she's also released her own how to draw book and teaches how to draw manga in a vocational school in Nakano, Japan. And our next Japanese mangaka mentor is Rena Saya. She's been in the industry for about 20 years already, and she also teaches at a manga school in Tokyo. All right, so those are our brilliant mentors in our one-shot manga drawing program. And if you want to work with him, then click the link in the description and sign up today. And just so you know, I just want to be clear, we're not just taking in anyone. We want to work with aspiring manga artists who want to be empowered. So if making or drawing manga is just a hobby for you or just a passing phase, then this program isn't for you, because we want to work with people who are truly serious about learning to draw manga. And this is for you. This program is for you if you're at least 18 years old and comfortable, can comfortably write and speak English, and you're a beginner who wants to learn how to draw manga and start telling your own stories. You have a passion for manga and dream of getting published or winning contests with your original work, and you're seeking confidence in a supportive community to share your art and grow as a manga artist. So if this sounds like you, then you're invited to apply and join our one-shot manga drawing program. The new term starts next month, actually, in October, and there are only 12 slots left. The slots are filling up, guys. This is your chance. And by the way, again, we only accept applicants who are 18 years old and above. So this is it. This is your moment. Go ahead and book a free consultation call with us today. You can go ahead and scan the QR code or click the link in the description to go book a call. And I just want to say, if you're an artist who wants to make manga, but you've been struggling, not making progress and just getting by on your own, like not getting advice and valuable mentorship from, people with experience, veterans in the industry, then this is an opportunity to get the help and guidance you need to improve as an artist and finally start making the kind of manga that you've always dreamed of making, So if this sounds like you and you believe that you fit our criteria to join the program, so scan the QR code, click the link to book a call with us today. All right. So while you guys go ahead and do that, we'll be taking some of your questions. All right. I'm going to be bringing back ArtCrumbs. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. All right.
All right. So
If you have any questions for ArtCrumbs, guys, now's the time to ask.
Yeah. Looks like we've got one. Are we ready to answer the questions?
Oh, do we have one? Wait, I haven't seen. Oh, is it possible to do something special for like 14 to 6-year-olds, like once in a while? I don't know, just an idea. I guess. Sorry if I sound rude. What do you mean, like something special? Like, do you want to join the program? Like, is there an option for underage students? Like, as of the moment, no. We're only taking 18-year-olds. So yeah, at least 18. People who are at least 18 years old. I mean, yeah.
I just saw a question. Can we bring back the question? I'm sorry. I think I derped. Okay. So Dragon, I'm assuming it's Faya, asked, how did you know that Onami was the story you really wanted to make a manga out of and publish? I didn't. I didn't know. When I was looking through like the ideas that I had, Onami was kind of the thing that I had the most fleshed out in that moment. And I mean, I had a bunch of other ideas of things that I wanted to work on, but I didn't have anything that I felt confident enough in to be able to submit. Like it wasn't developed enough at that point, and Onami was really the only thing that I felt like that I wanted to develop on. Plus, I had submitted it before to the Tezuka contest in 2020, and I felt really dissatisfied with how it turned out, and so I really wanted to, even if it never got a series, at least redo the one shot and give it its chance to become like a really good story. And so that was kind of how I figured out that like Onami was probably the best story that I want to move forward for. But I didn't know if Viz would accept that. I didn't know if Hisashi-san would go, yeah, let's work on this story. Because just because like I was in the program didn't mean they would accept whatever I pitched. Like I still had to go through the same process of, here's my idea, do you like this idea? So that was the one that I wanted to submit and see if he'd be willing to work with me on, and he said yes. So it worked out really well.
Okay, got it. I hope that answered your question, Dragon. We have another question. Do we have another question?
Yep.
Okay. Comic Man, how much time can you allocate to making your manga each day, and how much time would you recommend we take?
That's really going to depend on how much time you have. So for example, like with the schedule that I have, I work 9 to 5, or sorry, 9 to 6 every day, and that includes my hour for lunch. So what I actually split my working time between the morning and the evening. So typically what I'll do is I'll get up about 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I'll spend maybe an hour and a half working on my manga to start my day. And what that does for me is that gives me a reason to get excited to get up rather than, oh, I gotta go to work. Like, I mean, I love my job at Global Comics, but like sometimes you need a little extra motivation to get up. So like I get to start my day on a really fun note. So I get to be like, okay, cool, I get to go work on my manga, and like if I have an idea in my brain, I can just get it out of my brain. Like it's out of my head, it's on the paper, it's there. I can focus on work, go have a good day. And then if I want to work for another hour or two or maybe 4 after work, I can. Sometimes I have errands I have to run. Like I live alone. Like I have to go do the grocery shopping. I don't have I don't have a washer and dryer in my house. Like I have to go somewhere to go do my laundry. So like the amount of work that I would spend each night depends on what all I have to do for the day. That's why I have the loose schedule to sort of say, okay, based on this is my ideal day, what is my realistic day look like based on what I actually have to do today? And so usually I'll just adjust what I end up doing that day based on like what tasks I have or what tasks I have to do. But when I usually allocate about 2 hours to do errands after work. So from 6 to 8, I'm usually doing errands or cooking, cleaning, whatever I got to do. And then from 8 to about midnight, I'm doing manga or like art stuff. So I work about 6 hours a day on manga. But I would start small. Like if you're new to making a schedule, start small, because if you can't
Mm.
do an hour commitment, you can't do 4 hours or 6 hours commitment.
Yeah.
So like start small, be reasonable, and creativity is like a muscle. It's something that it's really hard to just bring on command at first. So start small, and like build up that muscle to be able to call it on command whenever you want, and stick to routine if you possibly can. It's hard with life sometimes, but if you can stick as close to routine as possible and be consistent every day, every week, every month, that'll help you build really good habits.
Yeah, so basically just ease yourself into it. Don't start
Yeah.
don't start off big. Don't start, okay, this is my first time like really committing myself to wanting to make my manga
Yeah.
consistently and routinely. Okay, I'm going to start with 6 hours a day. No, no.
Yeah, start
Like
small. Like
yeah,
yeah,
because
and
if
if
you haven't done this before, then you have to like get used to it, you know.
yeah, it can be really overwhelming because suddenly you go from working, like suddenly you, like if you have a regular day job, like just to say you don't have any other responsibilities, you're already working like 35 to 40 hours a week. And if you suddenly want to go, oh, I'm going to do 6 hours, I'm going to do 6 hours a day every day, that's an extra 42 hours a week. Are you able to handle an 80-hour week? Most people can't. I can't. I have to sometimes take weeks off or days off because I'm like, you know what? I'm too tired. I'm going to go to bed early and I'll get up extra early instead. Or maybe I'll just give myself 10 hours of sleep tonight because I want to. So like, yeah, you really shouldn't try to stick to the schedule too much to the point where it becomes a problem. Like, be
Yeah.
flexible with it, but start easy and build your way up.
Okay. Great answer. Do you guys, next question then from Katie Master 64, how often did you practice in building your portfolio before you did your one-shot manga?
Oh, okay. So I've been drawing overall for 15 years. Because I was 18 when I started. That was when I started my animation degree. I actually started college a year younger. I was 17 when I started college. That's why I was 18. But I started drawing only after I started my animation degree. And so from then until now, like I've been practicing my storytelling abilities through be it animation, making Western comics when I was in college with Gary Barker. Like I actually had a graphic novel class when I was at art school. So like I've had a variety of ways to practice those skills over the course of the last 15 years. But the way that I practice now, as cringe as this is going to sound, I'm going to out myself just because I think it's really valuable. I role play with a friend. We've had this role play just between, so she has a head world, which is like her own characters, her world, whatever. And then I have a head world. We've been role playing for 7 years now. So it's basically like D&D, but without the dice is basically what we're doing. And so what we love to do, and we both do this, what we love to do is we like to take those things that happen like in our RP and I guess in our D&D session, and we draw them out. Like it's fun. Like but it also it allows our characters to be put in situations they may normally never be put in. One example would be there's no cars in my world. It's the year 1891. There's no vehicles there. And so like in her world there are vehicles, and so like through whatever combobulated circumstances Aros ended up in her world, like he ran into a car. Like, well, he saw a car and he's like, what is this? So like I got to let him experience something brand new for the very first time, and so I got to learn about him through that. And so getting to help me understand my characters more. As far as the portfolios, I've had 6 years of art college, and I've had multiple instances where I've given people portfolio review advice. I've done some portfolio reviews for my previous animation student, like the teachers who used to be my teachers. Like I've now given portfolio reviews for their current students. So through making a bazillion portfolios over the course of my lifetime and through giving feedback on other people's portfolios, I've kind of learned like what makes a good portfolio, but also what makes a good portfolio is different. You wouldn't submit the same portfolio to Image that you would send to Viz. You wouldn't submit the same portfolio to a gaming company for a character design job that you would submit to another job for a matte painting position. So your portfolio should be catered to that specific submission every single time.
All right. So I'm afraid that's all the time we have with Art Crumbs today, you guys. Thank you so much for entertaining all our questions, Art Crumbs. I mean, it's fine. This was such a fun discussion. I think I've learned a lot, and I'm sure a lot of our audience has learned a lot. And we really appreciate you coming onto the live to share your journey, give us some tips. And it was a great conversation. Again, it was a great conversation. I hope you guys learned a lot and feel inspired to keep pursuing your art goals. So, ArtCrumbs, if you have anything you'd like to plug to our audience, your socials, where can they find you and your works after this live? Let them know.
Yep. So the most active place that I currently am is on Twitter with ArtCrumbs with 2 S's because the original one was taken. So you can find me on ArtCrumbs with 2 S's on Twitter. That's the most active place I am. On that Twitter, you'll also find my link tree. I'm also available on Instagram with the same username, ArtCrumbs with 2 S's. My YouTube channel is ArtCrumbs with 1 S. I do like to stream often in the mornings. I always leave my VODs up, so no worries. I'll always be available. If you'd like to support me, the best way to do so right now is to support my manga is to read Godsbane on Global Comics. I'm hoping, and you can still read Onami on Viz if you'd like to go ahead and check it out, even though it's not going to get serialized. Feel free to check that out. I would love to get feedback on it, so comments are very valuable to me. I read all of the comments so that I can make better manga in the future. If you guys ever have any questions for me, please don't hesitate to reach out to me over social media. I love answering questions, but just understand I may take some time to get back to you because lots of people have been reaching out lately. So, like, I'm always happy to answer questions. Just be patient with me while I wade through the inbox. But yeah, thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I love the opportunity to be on the channel and talk to people. And then for everyone watching, I really appreciate you guys being here. I didn't expect this many people to be here, but I'm really happy to see all of you guys here and answer your questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much again, ArtCrumbs. Again, if you want to stay updated on ArtCrumbs' art journey, give them a follow on their Twitter and Global Comics page. Go read their work on Global Comics and also subscribe to their channel. They post there regularly and they also do live streams regularly. So if you want to stay updated on what they're doing and how they're doing, then go ahead and check out their channel. All right. Thank you so much, Jackson.
Yep.
I'm going to thank you. Say bye to the chat. Bye-bye, guys. Okay. So now that we're done with the question and answer portion, I just want to leave you guys with this one final question. Where will you be tomorrow if you start today? So take the leap. There's nothing to lose and everything to gain just by taking that leap, just by clicking the link and booking a call with us or making the decision, okay, I want to start making my manga now. And if you want to make manga, then let us help you. If you're struggling and you don't know where to start, then we can guide you, our mentors can teach you, and the community of students we've built can support you. So why not grab this opportunity? Again, take the leap and take this opportunity to sign up, you guys. I'm going to put up the code again if you missed it, and again the link is also in the description if you already want to sign up. So feel free to go ahead and, again, as I said, take the leap. And that's all for today. You guys remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Hope to see you guys in our program, and I hope to see you in our upcoming live workshop this September 28th. It's another free manga training workshop where we'll teach you how to hook your audience in just one sentence. Very exciting stuff. So again, make sure to check out that live on our channel, subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll know when we upload and go live. And that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thank you so much for coming on to the live, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.